And we are back live.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In full effect, man. Hey, this is going to be a phenomenal episode, bro. It's so much going on, man. I love this time of year as a sports fan. So much going on, man. It's going to be a great episode, bro.
100%. So, we're going to touch on some, obviously, our basketball first. We got to have our March Madness updates, right? And we'll see how me and him are doing on our brackets. Hopefully, I should be when I know I picked a lot of upsets and a lot of them hit. Um, and then, of course,
This
we'll touch
guy,
on. Then, of course, we'll touch on some NFL free agency, right? We'll see what that's looking like because I know it's a lot of exciting transactions. So,
word.
and just we'll jump into that. But before that, we might as well jump. We spend all this time. We might as well give y'all this nice promo.
In Jesus' name. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's go.
And
I am geeked about this episode, bro.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely, man. I'm geeked too. So obviously we're gonna go ahead and kick it off. We'll jump straight into it. March Madness has been interesting the last few days. I'm literally at work, and I'm looking at the updates. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of upsets are happening. I went out on faith, and I picked a few, and I picked a few juicy matchups, and I just tried to be cute, but I didn't think that any of them were really going to hit. Well, at least not most of them. So so we'll see. So let's go back and forth. Let's start with March Madness. Tell us what were some games that you saw, or what was one game that you saw that you thought would completely impacted everyone's brackets and how it's going to change moving forward.
Well, I think the obvious choice is 15 St. Peter's defeating number 2 Kentucky. I think that's by far has been the biggest upset of this whole 2022 NCAA tournament. I don't think anyone's seen that coming. And then they doubled back last night, beat Murray State to get themselves to the Sweet 16. They are the third 15 seed in NCAA history to get to the Sweet 16. So I'm sure that ruined us a ton of brackets. I know I didn't have that pick at all. And don't you, I dare you to sit here and lie and say that you picked that.
I did it, but you know what? As a person that likes this roots for the underdog, I almost took them. My gut feeling told me take them, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to be the guy that just goes that picks all these upsets. Mm-hmm. So I decided to go ahead and go with the higher seed. But yeah, it was definitely a surprise. And you said that when we talked last time. You said what's the statistic? What's the exact statistic? That is it more times than not? It's always at least one.
So, I mean, obviously, in the NCAA tournament, there's going to be upsets. There's going to be some teams that you didn't know or that you haven't heard of from nowhere that are going to come and beat some powerhouse teams, some blue blood teams. That St. Peter's team, and I know last week we were talking about Loyola and how a lot of times with the guys that go to Loyola, they probably couldn't get into, say, Illinois or DePaul or Northwestern or something like that. So they go there. Same thing with that St. Peter's team out of New Jersey. They got some guys there who probably didn't quite get recruited by a Syracuse or a Rutgers or a St. John's or any of those teams up in that area. So they go right to St. Peter's. And hey, that team is tough, man. Like, and they're small. Like, they're not that large. They're going against teams where they're greatly outsized, but they play tough. They
hustle.
Physical basketball. They hustle. They make big shots, you know what I'm saying, in key moments. And I mean, I'm happy for them, man. 15 seed. They're in the Sweet 16. I don't think. Actually, we'll probably find out tonight who they'll play because there's still a few games left tonight. So we'll probably find out tonight who they'll play next week. But I mean, obviously that has to be the one game that ruined everyone's brackets.
Yeah, I don't think anybody predicted that one to happen. Now, for myself, You know, I got to pick one a little closer to the chest.
Okay.
You know,
I know where you're going here.
you know, I had my Trojans.
Your precious USC.
I had my Trojans going back because I think this last 2 or 3 years has been magical for them. You know, obviously went to the Final Four last year, and I felt like they would at least make it into the Elite Eight. You know, I know I was being cute and I said they make it to the Final Four again, but obviously they're not the same team without Evan Mobley. You know that he's that he's in the NBA.
I think they have his brother there though. I think
they do.
Mobley's there. Yeah,
or Mosley. I always say Mobley. It's Mosley, but
no. You're right. It's Mobley.
Is it Mobley? Okay,
yeah.
Mobley. Yeah, but I think the thing that doomed them was one. If you look at some of their games down the stretch, they haven't been able to score. They defend very well, as you can see. And the game between them and Miami it really wasn't far. Like, I mean, Miami won 68-66. But the thing I think that ultimately doomed them was that they didn't have a guy that could take over games, and that was just going to be. They didn't really have a clearly defined leader. I think they wanted that to be Isaiah Mobley. You know, I think that was but he only scored 11 points, and that was in the second half.
Well, first of all, let me start by saying that I did pick that. I did pick Miami to beat them. Sorry.
I know I don't like
that. But with that being said, I think another key point about those two teams and about that game is that Miami has some experienced guards on their team. They got one guy in Charlie Moore who I believe is a fifth-year senior now. Because of COVID and all the things with the transfer portal, he's been able to transfer numerous times. If I'm not mistaken, Miami is at least his fourth school. I'm almost sure of that because I know he was at DePaul. You know, he was at Kansas. I think he started at Cal. So I believe Miami is like his fourth school. You know, but when you got experienced guard play like that, it makes a difference in this tournament. And they're gonna be a dangerous team in this tournament. I know they play Auburn tonight, and I mean that's gonna be. I picked Auburn to win. Obviously, I had Auburn in my Final Four, but that's gonna be a tough matchup for Auburn because Miami has some really experienced guards that can, and come tournament time is really important. Guard play is extremely important.
Especially guards that can play defense.
Exactly.
I think that kid they got was Isaiah Wong, right? He's pretty good.
And he had a great game against USC. He played his tail off.
22 points, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I know another game. Well, first of all, let me just say this team in general, and I'm really, 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 really happy to see them make their way to the Sweet 16. And that's Michigan, man. And I know we had discussed last week. Michigan had a tough regular season. Coming into the season, they were like preseason top 5, top 10 in a lot of polls. And they really kind of disappointed in the regular season and in Big Ten play. And then toward the end of the Big Ten season, everybody knows about that mishap with Juwan Howard. And Juwan Howard's Michigan's head coach, for those that don't know. And Juwan Howard kind of taking a swing or taking a swipe at one of the assistant coaches from the Wisconsin Badgers at the end of a game. And I mean, he ended up being suspended for the rest of the regular season, but he was able to, come back. So he is coaching the team now. And just seeing this team through all the adversity that they went through, to see them be able to go out and they came into this tournament as an 11 seed. They go out there, they beat a 6 seed in Colorado State, and then they beat a very, very, very hot Tennessee team who was a number 3 seed who had just won the SEC tournament championship. And they came into this tournament hot, and Michigan went out there and defeated those guys. So I'm just really, really, really happy to see Juwan Howard being successful and to see that team kind of overcoming adversity and getting themselves to the Sweet 16.
No, 100%. And honestly, for me, I picked Michigan as well because we know that they're a good basketball team. If somebody made a joke, looking at last year, I guess we can't look at this year, but if you look at a year ago, somebody said Juwan Howard did for Michigan basketball what they expected Jim Harbaugh to do for Michigan football. And I think that's, it's a complete revelation, and they've been a completely different basketball team. So even though they struggled some this year, it was never a doubt in my mind that once the dust settled, especially after everything that happened with Juwan Howard, I think that was kind of like, I think they were able to settle down after that because he was frustrated,
Yeah.
But I knew
it had been a long season, you know what I'm saying?
Been a long season, yeah.
And during that particular game, they were getting beat pretty heavily, and he kind of took exception to something that one of the players did, toward the end of the game. He kind of broke one of the unwritten rules in basketball. He kind of took exception to that. And I mean, the coach from Wisconsin kind of came up, and I guess he was trying to apologize or whatever about it. And Juwan Howard at that moment, he was upset, and he just didn't want to hear it. Things escalated, and that happens from time to time. What I'm glad about is that he didn't lose his job over it, because he's honestly done a great job at Michigan since he's been there, and I'm glad he didn't lose his job over it.
He's restored Michigan basketball into the ranks of the elite.
He has, man. Yeah. And I knew he was going to do this. You know what I'm saying? First of all, he was a very solid NBA player. Mm-hmm. And he spent years, for people that don't know, he spent years on the Miami Heat staff back when they had D Wade and LeBron and Chris Bosh. He was one of their assistants. And then for him to get this opportunity at his alma mater, don't forget he was part of the Fab Five, which really changed college basketball and the way
changed college sports.
It did from the way these kids dressed. You know what I'm saying? Talking about 5 brash freshmen who went out there, and not only did they have brash attitudes, not only did they come in and play the game their way, and you know what I'm saying? Not only did they come in with their own swag, but they were successful. 2 Final Four appearances, they were successful. You know what I'm saying? So really, really happy for Juwan Howard and that Michigan team.
And excited to see it. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they continue going on and they shock some folk. I know they just beat Tennessee the other day.
It wouldn't, man. They have the talent to do that. So I mean, it wouldn't. I know they got a pretty tough Villanova team coming up next, and we know Villanova. We don't know nothing else about Villanova. We know that their guard play is always going to be phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? So they got a really tough. They made fairly easy work of Ohio State today. And so it's going to be a tough matchup for them. I'm not saying that they couldn't do it. I'm just saying I had already picked Villanova to come out of that game anyway. So
yeah, exactly. I got Nova in my bracket, but I actually had Loyola winning that game. So obviously, but still, I knew Villanova would advance.
So did I. Yeah. And then I'm a touch, and I think you and I both picked this particular upset in the first round. Richmond beat a good Iowa Big Ten team. Mm-hmm. And I had said, if you remember last week when we were on, I had said that, Richmond, they probably wouldn't have made the tournament if they didn't win the Atlantic 10 conference. And for those who don't know what I'm referencing to, we did a whole NCAA tournament bracket breakdown. So check the YouTube page, Rouge and Sports YouTube. Go back, check that video out. We broke down the whole tournament, gave our Final Four teams and our eventual champion. And I said during that taping that Richmond, like I said, they probably wouldn't have made the tournament if they hadn't won the A10 tournament. But they came in hot. They ran through the tournament, won the tournament, came into the NCAA tournament hot, and then they pulled off an upset over what was a pretty good Iowa team during the regular season.
Yeah, Iowa was ranked 5.
Mm-hmm. They got up to as high as 5. Yeah, they were a pretty good team, and
a lot of
Richmond they ended up losing in the they ended up getting smoked by Providence yesterday in the second round.
But I'm gonna tell you how impactful that was, them beating Iowa. A lot of people there were some people that had Iowa
getting as far as the Final Four. Yeah.
Yes. So that was really, really big. So that was substantial. I say this all the time, especially in college sports. You have some teams that come along like they're not there to win the national championship, whether they know it or not. Mm-hmm. They're there to just fuck up the standings, just screw things up.
And you know what? Like I always say, it's not about, you don't necessarily have to be the better team. You just have to play better that day.
That day, true. And on that's what happened. So that was a real substantial game. But it doesn't surprise me. Richmond is resilient. They've been a resilient team the last few years. They always have veteran guys, upperclassmen. I think the kid was their leading scorer in that game. Was it Jacoby or Jacob Gilliard?
Yep.
Kid was like a 4th or 5th year senior.
And I was just about to say that he's been there for a while, you know what I'm saying? And once again, it goes back to the fact when you got those experienced guys coming into these tournaments, these experienced guards, it really makes a difference. Mm-hmm. I was also going to mention, and I believe, I'm not sure. I don't have your bracket in front of me right now. I believe you picked this one as well. We had our first number 1 seed go down as Baylor lost to North Carolina, which I picked. Not, and maybe it was because I love my North Carolina. They are my favorite college basketball collegiate team. Mm-hmm. But North Carolina did knock off Baylor there in the second round, and I think you could kind of see that coming because as for the 4 number 1 seeds, they were the one who coming down the stretch toward the end of the season, they seemed to be the most vulnerable. They weren't playing their best basketball. North Carolina is a team who, I mean, you can say they've kind of been up and down this season, but as always, talent-wise, North Carolina has the talent to beat anyone. And they're kind of an old school basketball in the sense that they're a big team. They got a lot of big bodies that they can, they got a lot of big bodies that they can go at you. They got this kid, Armando Bacot, who I love. He reminds me, and it's crazy to compare him. He reminds me of Tristan Thompson because he is ferocious as an offensive rebounder. He has a little more refined offensive game. So, when he gets rebounds, he has a little more offensive game as far as being able to finish it. But he is ferocious as an offensive rebounder. And that brings about an interesting matchup in the Sweet 16 with them. They're going to be playing UCLA next week.
And UCLA, and I'm going to tell you this, UCLA is a tough team, but they better clean it up.
Oh yeah, they're gonna have to. They're gonna need all 5 guys. Everybody's gonna have to attack the glass because North Carolina is a ferocious offensive rebounding team.
100%. How far do you see you got UNC beating UCLA?
Actually, on my bracket, I did have those 2 teams facing each other, but I picked UCLA just because I mean UCLA brought some guys back from last year's team, and they were a Final Four team last year. So I kind of got them, I think I had them in my Elite 8. I had them losing in Elite 8, but I did have them beating North Carolina.
And just to give anybody that's watching an update on our brackets, if you guys haven't, please go watch the YouTube. We gave our breakdown, but I had UCLA in my Final Four. So,
and I don't even want to say who I had coming out of that region, but
because they're not here anymore. They're not with us anymore.
They are not. They got smoked in the first round. I thought Virginia Tech would do a little better, seeing how they came into this tournament hot, and Texas went out there and just made a mess of them. So
they did. Well, Virginia Tech was also one of those teams that people had surprised, that people said could possibly make it to the Final Four, because surprised people.
Yeah, because they were playing their best ball down the stretch of the season. They went on a run. They won the ACC tournament to get the automatic bid, and I don't know. I guess hey, you can't win them all. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I definitely missed with that one.
Well, obviously we got some more exciting games on today, and then we'll definitely have some more next weekend.
Oh yeah.
So,
Mark, stay tuned to this tournament, man. This NCAA tournament has been some great basketball being played. You're seeing a lot of stars, a lot of the stars of tomorrow in these games. You're seeing a lot of Cinderellas. Stay tuned to that St. Peter's team, because they have to be by far the most unexpected team in the Sweet 16. So let's just see where they go.
All right. Watch out for the 2 Pac-12 teams. Pac-12 is back. We're dominating college basketball.
UCLA, seeing and looking at their part of the bracket, if UCLA can beat North Carolina next week, I don't see why they wouldn't get to the Final Four.
What about Arizona?
I mean, I had Arizona in the Final Four anyway. However, whatever team that they end up, so they'll play a Houston team who's going to be tough, who's going to be physical next week. They're going to play Houston in the Sweet 16, and then after that, they're going to play either Michigan or Villanova, who's playing each other. So they'll play one of those teams. So they're going to have 2 tough games in order to get to that Final Four. But I did have them in the Final Four in my bracket. But they better bring it, because there's going to be some really good guard-heavy teams coming at them.
Well, once again, it's fun talking about college, but we said we wanted to do something really fun. We had a fun segment that we planned for you guys. It's our NBA underappreciated, overrated segment. So we're gonna go over a list of players that we feel like are underappreciated and overrated. And you guys can feel free to chime in, especially those of you guys that are on YouTube. Chime in, give us your takes on some of these players. We can openly engage, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So
it is, man. And basically, you know, what we did was we just kind of picked from the all 5 positions: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. We basically picked from a historical standpoint. We basically picked one player at each position who was underrated, whose career was underrated, and one player from each position who we felt were overrated. So it should be fun. It should be fun. And with that being said, I don't know. You want me to start? You want to start? Or where you want to go with this?
I'll let you kick it off.
Okay. And then what are we starting?
We start point guard. We start point guard.
All right.
Who, in your opinion, is an underrated or underappreciated point guard in NBA history?
First of all, let me say that growing up, actually, this guy was probably my favorite point guard in the NBA. And so a guy that I think as a point guard at the point guard position who was overrated throughout his career and that people don't talk about enough when they talk about all-time point guards, I'm gonna say Jason Kidd, man.
Okay.
So we talking about a kid. We talking about a guy, Jason Kidd. He was the 2nd overall pick in the 1994 draft. He's a 10-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA first team player, 4-time All-Defensive first team. He was co-rookie of the year his rookie year. He and Grant Hill split rookie of the year honors. And I always say when people talk about John Stockton, who is another underrated point guard, who I could have very well put on this list. John Stockton, I always tell people when they don't, you know what I'm saying, know about John Stockton, I always tell people that you can't forget that John Stockton is the all-time leader in points and assists. And it just so happened number 2 on both of those lists is Jason Kidd. And his career averages, I mean, they may not, you know, blow you away, you know what I'm saying? He's a career 12 points, 6 rebound, almost 9 assists guy. He got about 2 steals a game throughout his career. He made 2 finals appearances. I think one of his best traits is that he was a leader. Like, he was the ultimate leader. He's kind of, I would equate the impact that he had during his time and in his prime, I would equate his impact to the type of impact that Chris Paul has on NBA teams.
Okay,
now.
I can see that.
Wherever Chris Paul goes, he's successful.
And quiet as kept, even though he wasn't, you know, he was clearly past his prime. I think maybe people underestimate the impact that he had when the Mavericks won that NBA Finals. He had a very, very big impact. And I think I think that impact from an intangible standpoint is what catapulted him into the coaching ranks. And people are like, okay, I need this guy in my organization.
Absolutely. And I almost forgot that. So actually he's made 3 finals appearances. He lost to 2 with the New Jersey Nets at the time, and then he won with the Dallas Mavericks. He's fifth all time in triple doubles. And he was, for a long time, he was Mr. Triple Double, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he was.
People forget, people remember, you know, those Dallas years when he won a championship, but people tend to forget how great he was and how impactful he was on that New Jersey Nets team. And then even before that, people forget how great he was with Phoenix. And then those first couple years in Dallas, because people forget that Dallas actually drafted him. And he played his first couple years in Dallas before going to Phoenix and then New Jersey and then ultimately back to Dallas. And I think he finished his career with the Knicks. So, yeah, man, Jason Kidd, man, like I said, growing up, he was absolutely my favorite point player because I knew what I was going to get out of him. You know,
and he's very well rounded.
He is
very
well. And he ended up for a guy when he came into the league, he couldn't shoot. He ended up top 10 all time as far as 3-pointers made for a guy that couldn't shoot.
Right. He worked on his craft.
Yeah. So, Jason Kidd, one of the most underrated point guards in NBA history, man. Who you got?
So, you know me, I gotta ruffle some feathers here. I'm not gonna throw out who you think I'm gonna throw out because I think you're a smiler. You're like, Is he? I can't better not say
If
it.
you, I
Right.
swear, I'm a log off.
Hey, because you guys know, anybody that knows me knows my favorite point guard is Jameer Nelson, but I'm not gonna throw him out there.
I don't know why. People, I don't know why. Maybe y'all can come in and ask him why. Maybe at a later date he can explain that to y'all, but I have no idea why.
Hey, let's put respect on Jameer Nelson's name. Anyways, I got a guy that's from the old school, Terry Porter. Terry Porter,
okay.
Portland. I think his name gets lost in the shuffle. He was a 3-and-D guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was definitely, obviously, he was in that series where they played the Bulls, and more times than not, he was guarding Michael Jordan.
So he was kind of integral part of that team.
A very integral part. And he was, even outside of, I think people look at more, obviously him being a coach, people forget his contributions as a player. But he was a two-time NBA All-Star. I want to say he was the yin to Clyde Drexler's yang. Willing defender, but at the same time, if you put him in a position, he really could score. So I don't know if you remember that conference finals, or if you ever seen any tape, anybody researched that conference finals they had against Utah. Terry Porter had a 41-point game in that series to help lift them and ultimately get them to the finals. So Terry Porter is who I picked. And I think that he's one of the names that kind of get lost in the shuffle when we talk about point guards in the 1990s.
Man, that is I would have never thought of that. And then I'll throw another name out there. And this guy should definitely be in the Hall of Fame. And hopefully, I believe he's a finalist this year. So hopefully he can finally get across that threshold. Tim Hardaway.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Tim Hardaway was a stud, okay, from the Golden State years to especially the Miami years, because he would give those Bulls teams troubles with him and Alonzo Mourning, Jamal Mashburn, Dan Marley. Those Miami years, he would give Miami troubles. He would give them fits. Another Chicago guy, and he could shoot the thread off the ball.
South side or west side?
South side, actually. He's a South sider. I think he went to I believe he went to Carver High School for my South Side Chicago guys. I believe he went to Carver. Y'all can fact check me on that, but I know he's from Chicago. One of the guys, I'm not gonna say the originator of the crossover, but one of the guys who quietly made the crossover a really relevant move in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? People forget about it because he had that quick little 1-2 little pat crossover, and people the little quick compact, bang bang. You know what I'm saying? And people kind of forget about Tim Hardaway in the grand scheme of things, man. But yeah, I think he's another guy that can be considered
underappreciated.
And I truly hope that he gets into the Hall of Fame. But man, that Terry Porter, man,
it made you think, right? Yeah, because sometimes you got to go back. Like I said, it's a lot of guys that get lost in history, and you look back, you're like, man, this dude really was good. But Terry Porter, because a lot of people, I hate when people say, that Portland team, all they had was Clyde Drexler. No, Terry Porter was a damn good player in his own right. So we got to respect him a little bit.
He was, man. He was, and even at that time, you know what I'm saying. Cliff Robinson was a solid player for them. Jerome Kersey was a solid player for them. So they had some guys there. And consider this. And I'm gonna get back to this later with someone else that I have on one of my lists. But consider this: that was their second finals appearance. Because people forget that they had lost to the Detroit Pistons a few years earlier.
That's true.
So that that very same team, pretty much as constructed, made it to the finals twice.
Right.
Out the Western Conference. So you can't take that for granted.
And he was there, mid 80s to like the mid 90s. So he had a nice little stretch there, Clyde Drexler.
He did.
So let's shooting guard.
So we doing underrated shooting guard?
Underrated shooting guard.
All right, here it is. Another one of my favorite players growing up. Another one of my favorite players. Tracy McGrady.
Rightfully so.
Tracy McGrady.
But do you feel like T-Mac is underappreciated?
He's underappreciated.
Because there was a time we was arguing.
I'm gonna get to that. Give me a second. I'm gonna get to that. Okay. So we got T-Mac. He was drafted in '97, 9th pick. He's a 7-time All-Star, 2-time scoring champion, 2-time All-NBA first team. He has career. He was most improved player in 2001. He has a career average of about 19, 5, and 4 over his career. as you were going to equate to, as you were going to say, there was a time when there was a genuine discussion as to who was better or who was the best shooting guard in the league between Tracy McGrady and Kobe Bryant.
That's true.
Tracy McGrady is one of the best scorers this league has ever seen. And we always, or you might hear me mention 3-level scorers. He was one of those guys. He a guy that could take you on the post, back to the basket. He had a great mid-range. He could shoot the three. For him to be, I believe he was listed at 6'7", I believe, or 6'8". I believe he was listed at 6'8", but he was long and wiry. He could shoot over you.
So he probably had close to a 7-foot wingspan.
He did. He definitely did. He can shoot over you. He could dunk over you. He could take you in the post and finish around the post. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was about to say, isn't it so unfortunate we never got to see that him and Yao Ming thing come to fruition in Houston?
It is. Between the injuries, between the both of those guys, we never truly got to see them both be at their best at the same time. You know, one of the knocks on Tracy McGrady is that before he got to San Antonio toward the back end of his career, one of the knocks on Tracy McGrady is that he never got out of the first round of the playoffs.
True.
And I think there's a lot that goes into that. He did, and I got to be honest, he did give up a 3-1 lead before.
Right.
A Doc Rivers coached team. It's another story for another day. But in Orlando, he did give up a 3-1 lead in a first round playoff series. But yeah, man, I think injuries kind of slowed him down and kind of shortened his prime. But I mean, for a solid, I'm gonna say 5 or 6 year stretch, he was arguably the best shooting guard in the NBA. And mind you, Kobe Bryant was in the league during
Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade, yeah. So it's arguable.
Okay. T-Mac, I respect that, even though I give him his flowers. I think he's a phenomenal player.
I try to too, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I think people really forget just how good and how talented he was.
He really was. Yeah. No, I agree. So I'm gonna throw out another name. Right. I'm we giving history lessons out here today.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw another name out that a lot of people, forget about.
Okay.
Sidney Moncrief.
Oh, you done went back now.
For the Milwaukee Bucks.
You done went back.
And and it's funny, I'm like, I'm thinking about underrated shooting guards that we don't talk about. And of course, we had people are talking about Jordan and, talking about, his failures and stuff and playoffs, and you think about his first year and he plays the Milwaukee Bucks and he loses to that team led by Sidney Moncrief. Sidney Moncrief was probably, I want to say he was ahead of his time, but he was a bigger guard, 6'4", 5-time All-Star. He was a very good defender, 4-time All-Defensive First Team, and he had a 5-year time span in the 80s. I want to say it was the early to mid 80s, where he was a 25-5 guy.
Right.
And like I said, just really solid all around, and he led that Milwaukee Bucks team. I can't really think of many other stars that they had in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously there was a time where Al Cindor played there, and all these all these
Lou Alcindor, that was more 70s though, because he was
there. The 70s.
Yeah, he was there before he went to the Lakers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you had, but I can't think of any big stars that really played with Sidney Moncrief during that time span. But yeah, underrated shooting guard in NBA history.
I believe if you look him up, I believe as far as points go, he's probably somewhere all time. I believe he's like somewhere top 25, top 30 as far as all time points scored in the NBA.
Sidney Moncrief?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, he put up a lot of great numbers, man. That's another sneaky one, another overlooked one, but a good one indeed. I'm gonna hop to my small forward, and
I want to hear who you have, because hopefully we don't have the same person. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna go with my small forward, and obviously I'm a Chicago guy, so I had to go with Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen, 1987 draft, 5th pick overall. Played 16 years in the NBA. His career averages ended up being about 16 a game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals a game. He's a 6-time champion, as we know, a 7-time All-Star, 3-time All NBA first team, 8-time All Defensive first team, and he's 7th all time in steals per game. I've had this discussion with you before, and as you like to say, I will die on this cliff. Scottie Pippen is the best wing defender to me in NBA history.
In NBA history.
In NBA history. He's the best wing defender to me in NBA history. And we can't underestimate what he did for these Chicago Bulls teams. Michael Jordan has even openly admitted that he would have never got a ring without him.
Yeah,
I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little bitter towards Scottie Pippen right now because of some of his recent statements and his recent actions, and the way he's kind of going about things. And even though, I mean, okay, he has a point about the way he was portrayed in The Last Dance, but I just don't like the way he's handled things. With that being said, though, I will say that I don't think he has gotten the flowers he deserved. In those 2 years, Michael Jordan retired, and he retired for about a year and a half. He missed the whole 1994 season, and he came back with about 19 games left in the 1995 season. 1994, you can argue, and I would argue he was robbed. Scottie Pippen probably should have been the MVP that year. And then they got to the playoffs and got to a game 7 against the Knicks, and it was a terrible call there. Otherwise, we might have seen him get the Bulls to at least the Eastern Conference Finals, if not the finals. True. So I mean, he held at that time. He held his own. You know what I'm saying? And he had his issues. We all know about famously him not going into the game when he didn't get when they didn't call a play for him to get the last shot. He's had his issues. We know about the migraine game in Game 7 in 1990, I believe that was, against the Pistons. He's had his issues. We all know about him, but I think overall he's very underrated and understated as an all-time small forward, and I don't think people give him enough credit for what he did for those Bulls teams.
And I would partly agree. I think people get lost in his antics.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously, once again, we just had The Last Dance, but I think he's a phenomenal player. And I'll agree with you. He probably is the best wing defender. Some people say the best on-ball defender, but I've heard other names get thrown in the fold like Dennis Rodman. But
you can, yeah. And Dennis Rodman definitely has an argument in that discussion.
Right.
Like I said, for me, I would still go with Scottie Pippen, but Dennis Rodman's right there. I wouldn't argue with anyone who says Dennis Rodman is the best on-ball or best wing defender. I wouldn't argue with that either. And then later Dennis Rodman's career, he started to really guard bigs. You know what I'm saying? So,
So I'll throw a name out since you wanted to bring up Scottie Pippen. All right, you're a Chicago guy.
Okay,
I'm gonna throw out a name since you just said you just mentioned a key moment in Bulls history where Scottie Pippen refused to come in because the shot wasn't given to him.
Okay,
and I'm gonna bring up another guy who the play was drawn up for, and Tony Kukoc. I think Tony Kukoc, and we're not going to look at his career statistics. I think that they were solid, but I think that they definitely could have been better. But I think it's just because of the role he had for the Bulls. But one thing I will say is if you look at him with his skill set, I think he was ahead of his time as far as where the NBA was at that time.
I can agree with that.
6'10", 230-pound guy, could do everything. Could score, could shoot the ball. Right, had a nice little down low post game, had a mid range. Wasn't the greatest defender, right? He was willing, but he wasn't a great defender. He could get rebounds. I think if you were to take Tony Kukoc and you were to put him in today's NBA, I think he's a damn all-star. Especially
if you catch him in his prime. I think when he got to the Bulls, obviously the Bulls already had guys ahead of him. He wasn't gonna, get any shine with Michael Jordan and then Scottie Pippen right behind him. But once again, yet another integral part of those last 3 championships for the Bulls. He won Sixth Man of the Year. I believe he won Sixth Man of the Year one of those years. We talking about a very talented kid from overseas, left-handed. Like you said, he could shoot. He could play with his back to the basket. He had a pretty solid handle. Tony Kukoc. I loved Tony Kukoc coming up watching these Bulls teams, man. He was, like I said, a very important part of these Bulls teams.
And there's
the last 3-peat.
And there's a reason why he's in the NBA Hall of Fame.
Because, it is, and I think it's more so for what he did
in
overseas,
Croatia.
over in Croatia. Yeah, And if you guys watch the Last Dance documentary, you can kind of get a grasp of how good he was at the time, considering as they said in the documentary, Jerry Krause the Bulls had just drafted him. They actually drafted him in '92, and they kind of thought that he could be next in line to come over to the Bulls and really be someone that they can maybe transition with in the future. And that's kind of why Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen kind of took exception to that. And they went out there, in that game playing on the Dream Team, and they held them to a combined 4 points, in that game. But yeah, I think he got in definitely because of what we seen him do overseas. I think he's another one of those situations, and you can add Arvydas Sabonis to this too. Another one of those situations where you kind of caught him. In Kukoc's situation, I think he just came at a bad time because Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were still there. Sabonis is a guy, although he's a center, Sabonis is a guy where he got over to the NBA toward the back end of his career. But if you talk about overseas guys, those are two guys from overseas that you hear were just phenomenal over there.
Manu Ginobili as well.
Manu as well, yeah.
Manu Ginobili.
Manu did get into the NBA, to the Hall of Fame, for his work that he did with the San Antonio Spurs on those championship teams. But yeah, man, I think that's another solid one. Okay, I see you over there. I see you.
I had to give him a he likes when I throw out his Bulls guys. But yeah, Tony Kukoc, put him in today's NBA. I don't see any reason why.
I can agree with that. You catch Tony Kukoc in his prime, drop him in today's league. Yeah, I think he's pretty successful. Power forwards. Power forwards. All right, so I think for the youth out there, we look at TNT and we see this guy and we see some of his crazy takes and some of his crazy antics, and a lot of people don't know, but Charles Barkley was a dog. Okay, let me say that again. Charles Barkley was a dog during his time in the NBA, and that's why I have him as one of my most underrated power forwards. He was the 5th pick in that famous 1984 draft, the same draft with Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, John Stockton. 5th pick in that very draft. 16-year career. He's an 11-time All-Star, 1993 MVP. We always talk about the Dream Team, and a lot of people consider the Dream Team to be the best collection of talent, not just in basketball history, but some would say in sports
history, 100%.
And during that 1992 Olympics, on that very Dream Team, it was Charles Barkley who led that team in scoring. A lot of people don't know that. He played extremely well there. 5-time All-NBA first teamer. He has career averages of 22, almost 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. He averaged 10 rebounds, with the exception of his rookie year. He averaged at least 10 rebounds every year of his NBA career. And he averaged at least 20 and 10 11 times during his NBA career. Obviously, we know he got to the finals once, losing in '93 to the Bulls. We seen him toward the back end of his career hop on with that Houston team, and things didn't quite pan out the way they would have hoped. He was coming toward the back end of his career. His weight was getting a little out of shape, but the round mound of rebound, as they called him, those years in Philly, and then coincided with those years in Phoenix. Listen, a dog, okay? And then considering that he was only 6'5",
was he 6'5"? I thought he was 6'6". I thought he was 6'6".
6'5",
if it's 6'5", it's even worse. I knew he was an undersized power forward.
6'5", 6'6", still undersized for a power forward. But because of his girth, you know what I'm saying, he figured out early on how to use the size and the width that he has to make room for himself. And I mean, I think that a lot of guys, go on YouTube, watch some old tape of Charles Barkley, because like I said, once again, for the youth out there, a lot of people see him on TNT and they just say, whatever, however about him. They think he's crazy. They hear some of these crazy takes that he has. But as an NBA player, once again, Charles Barkley was a dog. Don't forget that. Go check him out.
Charles Barkley, right? One of the guys Jordan prevented from
Yep, another guy. Yep,
from getting his due. He was a victim of the times. What I like to say.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna throw out another old school guy, who's well known, and I think also gets lost in the fold just because we're seeing so many talented big men or power forwards coming to the NBA, and that's Kevin McHale.
I knew you were gonna say Kevin McHale, man. I knew you were gonna say Kevin McHale. That's a great pick. That's a great pick.
But it's. I mean, we look at his career. We know he played for the Celtics, and he was on those dominant Celtics teams in the '90s with Danny Ainge and Larry Bird. But I think people forget, because I hate when people say that the NBA really wasn't physical back then. And sometimes I've seen people show a picture of Kevin McHale like he wasn't.
Anyone who says the NBA wasn't physical during the '80s is ludicrous. '80s and '90s, they're crazy.
Kevin McHale was probably as physical a power forward as you can get, especially in that era.
And he wasn't like big or strong or whatever, no. but yeah, he had a little mean streak to him.
He did, and he had a phenomenal post game. He had a phenomenal down low post game.
I was gonna let you finish, but I was gonna say that personally, as far as post games, I always said that Hakeem Olajuwon was the standard. He probably has the best post game I've ever seen.
Then you got
Kevin McHale. Tim Duncan's right there.
Yeah, but
I would probably put Kevin McHale number 2 as far as best post games, because Kevin McHale had moves for decades.
He did, and he was quietly one of the best rebounders the NBA has ever had.
Mm-hmm.
He had about a 6 or 7 year time span where he didn't average less than 8 rebounds a game.
And I think that his role on those Boston Celtics championship teams, we all know Larry Bird was that guy for them.
Right.
But I think his role on those teams is very underrated. Believe it or not, there were a couple years in Boston where Kevin McHale was actually outscoring Larry Bird. Now, Larry Bird's impact on the game and some of the other things he did, and Larry Bird down the stretch, him being clutch, obviously, I would never even suggest that he was a better player than Larry Bird was. Mm-hmm. But go look it up. There's some years where Kevin McHale actually outscored him.
Yeah, and I think his career high average was 26 points per game.
Yeah.
And that was in 86, 87.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe 86, 87. Did the Celtics win it that year?
If they didn't win it,
or if it was 85. I know they went to the finals.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they won it or if LA won it.
They won. I know they won 3. They won 3 in the 80s.
The Boston Celtics and the LA Lakers were in one of those two teams were in every finals in the 80s.
Right, true. So, yeah, Kevin McHale. We talk about the Tim Duncans and the Dirks, but we kind of let his name get lost in the fold. He was probably one of the first truly well-rounded power forwards the NBA has ever seen.
And then, if you have any question about him and his game and how great and how well-rounded of a post game he had, just listen to Kevin Garnett and the way he talks about Kevin McHale. And the way he explains how Kevin McHale had such an impact on his post game, and all the times that Kevin McHale would take him and pull him to the side and show him moves here and there, and really help expand Kevin Garnett's post game. So yeah, Kevin McHale is a stud,
and that says a lot for Kevin Garnett. He don't give out the compliments pretty easy.
he don't, man. And Kevin Garnett, another guy who had a heck of a post game in himself, and another guy who you could probably say. I mean, you hear people mention him, but in the grand scheme of things, you could probably say, maybe he was a little underrated during his time because because he played in a time where there was a slew of great power forwards.
True. So Kevin
Garnett. I'm talking.
Yeah, he did. Kevin Garnett. No, 100%.
All right.
Centers.
All right. Underrated center. And I used to love this guy. David Robinson. All right.
Oh.
Played for the San Antonio Spurs his entire career. He was the number 1 pick in the 1987 draft. However, he didn't play in the NBA until 1989 because he was in the Navy. Shout out. Look, who y'all Navy? But coming from two Navy vets
Mm-hmm.
right here on the show here. He was in the Navy, and so he didn't actually play in the NBA until 1989.
That's why they call him the Admiral.
That's why they called him the Admiral. 13 seasons. He was a 10-time All-Star. Career averages of about 21, 10, about 2.5 assists, a steal, and he averaged 3 blocks a game over his career. He was Rookie of the Year in 1990. He was MVP in 1995. Defensive. He has a Defensive Player of the Year award in 92. He was a 3-time All NBA First Team, 3-time All Defensive First Team. Obviously, we know about the 2 titles that he got once Tim Duncan got there, and he's 6th all-time in blocks. I throw this stat out a lot. He is one of only 6 players in history in who have in their careers, one of only 6 players in history who in their careers have won an MVP and a Defensive Player of the Year in their entire careers. He's one of only 6 players to do that. This is a guy, I mean, he was caught up in an era where there were a ton of big men, a ton of centers who were great, especially during the 90s. You had Hakeem, who he was running into Hakeem Olajuwon in the Western Conference. Patrick Ewing. Shaq had came in 92. I believe Alonzo Mourning had came in 92. Kembe Mutombo, who was more of a defensive guy, but
still great in his own right.
Yeah. He was in an era where there was just a ton of great centers, and he kind of gets lost in the sauce because, unfortunately for him, he didn't win a ring until Tim Duncan got there. But I mean, we're talking about not just one of the better offensive centers, but one of the better defensive centers in NBA too. If you watch his game, this was a guy who, during that time, you didn't see this a lot, but this was a guy as a center who could hit. You can hit from about 20 foot and in. He had the 20-foot jumper, had the 18-foot jumper, left-handed guy. The man was a stud. He would run the floor like nobody's business. He could run the mess out the floor. David Robinson was a stud. So yeah, my center underrated, David Robinson.
So I guess you guys know my pick for center. I wouldn't be me if I didn't ruffle feathers. If I didn't give you guys the him.
Don't scare me now.
But let's talk about But when talking about underappreciated, I'm gonna tell you a guy who I actually liked and I thought maybe could have been talked about in a little bit more respectful light. Just looking at what he did on the defensive side, and that was Marcus Camby.
Oh,
yeah, I liked Marcus Camby. Definitely, his time with the Nuggets and the Clippers. But he never made an All-Star. He wasn't a big scorer. I think, he maybe averaged somewhere around 8 and 10. His career high was 14, which was like in 98. But on the defensive side of the ball, he was a 2-time All-Defensive First Team, a 2-time All-Defensive Second Team, and he led the NBA in blocks 4 years out of his career. I want to say he did it once in 98, and he did it for a 3-year time span from 2006 to 2008. So he could honestly say that there was a good 4 or 5 year. I judge by stretches. All right. It's not about just 1 year. Are you successful in a stretch of time? Marcus Camby can say that for a good 5-year time span, he was probably one of the top 2 or 3 best defending big men in the NBA.
Oh yeah, and I think he's definitely known for his defensive prowess. He was 7 foot long though. He was 7 foot with probably a 7'6", 7'7" wingspan. He was long. He definitely hung his hat on the defensive end. He was definitely a rim protector, a great help defender. Offensively, as his career went on, he learned to kind of knock down that 14 to 15 footer, and it kind of helped him out. He was on that Knicks team who in 1999 in the lockout shortened season, as the 8th seed, they made it all the way to the finals before eventually losing to San Antonio. That was Tim Duncan's first ring.
That's true.
1999 lockout shortened season. So yeah, that's a good one, man. Look at you, man. You are acting up. Okay, you're acting up. That's a good one, man.
Hey, look, I want to tell you guys 2 names he knows I wanted to throw out. My guys,
Oh God.
I wanted Jameer Nelson and I wanted Shane
Don't
Battier.
listen. Don't. All right now. Don't have me log off now.
So yeah, that is our underappreciated list. Now it's time to get into our overrated list. I'm sure this will be fast. We might have some of the same guys, but I have some guys that's definitely gonna ruffle his feathers. So Swan, I'm gonna let you start out. Who's an overrated point guard in your opinion?
Overrated point guard. You should already know where I'm going with this. I think we've touched him every episode we've done so far. Russell Westbrook, bro. Oh my God. Now, hold on. I'm gonna give him his flowers. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give him his just due. I'm gonna give him his flowers. Okay.
Okay,
He's
give him his flowers.
a career 22 point per game score, 7 rebounds, 8 assists over his career. He was selected 4th overall in 2008. He's a 9-time All-Star, won the MVP in 2017. 2-time All NBA first teamer, 3-time assist leader. He's averaged a triple double 3 times in his career, and he is the all-time leader in triple doubles in NBA history.
Okay.
Now that I got that, look and
now that we established that.
Now look, that's my wife talking about Westbrook old trash. You know what? And I agree, babe. I agree. But now that we gave him his flowers, I've always said, even early on, that a Russell Westbrook led team would never win a championship because he's just too out of control. And I think even this year, I think a lot of the negative things about Russell Westbrook has kind of come to light. I think we've kind of started to see him for the stat chaser and the kind of self-absorbed guy that he is. He was never an efficient player. Never. One thing about him is that we could never question his work ethic. And his work ethic combined with his athleticism is kind of what really made him successful in the NBA. But I think it's something to be said about him to see how unsuccessful he's been with this team, to see how every other superstar that he's played with has found a way to get away from him. I think it's something to be said about that. I think it's something to be said that when he had his opportunity to be the man in OKC, he went out there, stat chased, got his triple doubles, but they never got out of the first round. When he had his chance, when he was the man in OKC, they never got out of the first round. So yeah, I mean, I think, I always give Russell Westbrook a lot of crap, man. But yeah, I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, and here's what's crazy with all of this being said, Russell Westbrook is going to be a first ballot
Hall of Famer. But
that's crazy.
But like you always say, he's probably the most unskilled.
He is. Here's
a better way to say it. He probably has the lowest basketball IQ of any first ballot Hall of Famer you've ever seen.
He does, man. And he's literally made a career off of playing hard and athleticism. He's not skilled. He's never been a great shooter of the ball. Okay, he gets to the bucket, but he never finished extremely well around the rim unless he was able to, you know what I'm saying, really gather and go up and dunk on you. He's never been a great finisher around
the rim. He doesn't have a great handle.
Rim. He doesn't have the best handle. He's never been clutch.
He's not a great defender.
He's never been a great defender. You know what I'm saying? He's not the best leader, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, I think it's something to be said that every superstar, every other star that's ever played with him has found a way to get away from him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, Russell Westbrook, grand scheme of things, very overrated.
So it's funny you picked Russ, which is, I'm not surprised, but there was a guy that I thought that we would agree on that we've been talking about for years. I have some love for him, from an intangible standpoint. But as a player, man, Kyle Lowry is a little bit overrated.
Oh, yes, sir.
He's a little overrated.
Yes, sir.
And I say that because,
my God.
So this is, kind of giving him his flowers. This is the value that Kyle Lowry gives you.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that you could bring in. He hustles. He plays hard. He has the right mindset. He's going to work. He's going to take hard fouls. He'll take charges. He'll do anything you ask him to do. But he's a good leader. He's a good leader. He's a great leader. And he's a guy that if you're building a culture from the ground up, you can build a culture around Kyle Lowry. I think Kyle Lowry, all his strengths are from intangibles. And I think that he's a guy that once his career is done, which is probably going to be fairly soon, he's going to be a coach. Kyle Lowry will be a coach.
Oh yeah. I can
Kyle
see
Lowry
that.
will be a coach.
See that.
But as a player, there's nothing you can look at. There's nothing Kyle Lowry can hang his hat on to say, I do this shit.
Word.
Not as a defender, not as a scorer. I think it took him 5 years. He was a Villanova guy, right?
Yep.
I think he was. It took him 5 years to even get to the point to where he could average 10 points in the NBA.
Because I think he started in Houston and he kind of struggled there.
He started in Memphis. He started in
Memphis. Okay.
He started in Memphis. Right.
Memphis,
yeah.
and then
Memphis. Then he went to Houston. Yeah. But that just shows you. So he's a guy that he was a really late bloomer as far as becoming a scorer in the NBA. And I think it took him until 2016. He came in the league 06. So it took him about 10 years till he got to the point to where he could become a 20 points per game type of guy. And even after then, that was only one damn year. So we have a guy, that we used to work with when we were in the Navy, and a guy said, "Man, Kyle Lowry could be in the gym shooting with us."
For real, man. Real quick. So couple guys. So when we were talking about, let me just give these guys a shout out. So we were talking about, and I'm gonna get to Kyle Lowry in a second. We were talking about overrated shooting guards. One guy mentioned Kerry Kittles. Kerry Kittles isn't even a top 50 point guard in NBA history. You know what I'm saying? He was good. He was a solid guy for his time. He was a pretty solid part of some New Jersey Nets teams that made it to the finals with being led by Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson, Kenyon Martin. But I mean, seriously, Kerry Kittles for me isn't even in the discussion. Another guy, we were talking about power forwards. He mentioned Karl Malone. So let me say this.
You look at comments?
Yeah. So let me say this about Karl Malone. I just think I think Karl Malone
overrated or underappreciated.
He was saying that he was underappreciated.
Okay.
And I was gonna say that I think Karl Malone gets his flowers. We talking about a guy who, up until last night when LeBron just passed him, we talking about a guy who was who's the second all-time leading scorer in NBA history. Now he's third. LeBron passed him last night. You know what I'm saying? We talking about a guy who's been to two NBA finals. You know what I'm saying? And now I think from a standpoint, you have to consider that he always played with a guy like John Stockton, and they ran the mess out of that pick and roll, and he was always able to get easy buckets. I think one of the things that's underrated from him was that early in his career, he was just seen as a rim runner, and he was just, pick and roll and catching and finishing a lot. Later in his career, as his athleticism left him, you've seen him pick up that 15 to 20 footer. So instead of a lot of picking and rolling, you've seen them picking and popping, and Karl Malone was still able to be successful doing that. But I don't think he's underappreciated. I think he gets his just due. Same guy said, and you mentioned your boy Jameer Nelson.
Cold.
And actually, he brought up a name. He was saying this guy is better than Jameer Nelson, and he could actually be considered as an underrated point guard. And he mentioned Darren Williams.
Oh, well, okay. Underrated though? Because there was about a 3-year time span where Darren Williams was that motherfucking dude. Excuse my language.
He was
that dude. He was like the class of point guard, but he just faded into obscurity. 1 minute he was great, and the next minute you didn't hear about him anymore.
He was. I don't know if it was injuries or what, but there was a point in time. I know for me, there was a point in time where I said he was the best point guard in the league.
He was, 100%.
And I had him ahead of Chris Paul, who was in the league.
Exactly. So, people had him above Chris Paul. So I guess I can respect it in retrospect because people stopped talking about him. But during that time, which I think was, what was it, around 2011, 2013?
Yeah,
somewhere up in there. People
Utah
were
was
talking
making little runs. Him and Carlos Boozer. Don't get me started. But yeah, and for the guys that are watching via Facebook Live, we love you. We appreciate you. If you can, guys, check out that link. I posted a link on my page. Check out that link. Head over to YouTube. Catch us on YouTube. And if you comment there, we'll be able to actually see you guys during the live stream, and we can kind of respond to you guys in live time. So for everyone that's watching on Facebook Live, just check out my Facebook page. Check out Kenneth Clark's Facebook page.
It will pop up on the screen.
YouTube link, and it'll just pop right up. You'll see us live streaming on YouTube, and then comment there, and we can see it live and come up with a live reaction there. Real quick, just getting back to your Kyle Lowry argument, man. I mean, you know what? I remember a couple years ago, I was watching him in the All-Star game, and this was like one of those first years where I think LeBron and KD or LeBron and somebody had picked the teams, and the game was getting down the stretch, and it was a close game. And I just remember him, all these stars on the team, and I remember him just kind of taking it upon himself to just pull up and shoot this three down the stretch. And when I tell you, it didn't hit nothing. And from that point forward, I just been like, man, bro, it's just so indicative of who he is as a player. Up until 2019, when Toronto won the NBA championship, the stigma on him was that he didn't show up in big games, because he had some terrible, terrible playoff games.
Yeah, he did.
Up until 2019, in the Game 6 in that finals, he played his tail off. He balled out in that game. Give him credit where it's due. But yeah, I know I picked Russell Westbrook, but as far as point guards, overrated, Kyle Lowry. That's a great pick, bro. I gotta agree with you.
Definitely overrated. So shooting guard, overrated shooting guards. Please, people, comment. I want to know who you guys feel like are overrated shooting guards. But let's hear yours, Swan.
Absolutely. Hop on YouTube and comment so we can see it live. My overrated shooting guard, bro. I told you I was gonna get back to him. Clyde Drexler. Yes, sir. So overrated to me. Overrated. We talking about a guy here. He was drafted in 1983, first round, 14th pick in the 1983 draft. He was a 10-time All-Star, won All NBA first team, which happened to be in 1992, I believe, which was part of the reason why when he got to the finals, Michael Jordan was just looking at this dude like, he doesn't even compare to me. But yeah, Clyde Drexler. He has career averages of 20 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, about 2 steals a game. Okay, so let me say this. He had up until now, he jumped on toward the back end of his career. He jumped on with the Houston Rockets, and I believe the second championship of the Houston Rockets back to back.
He was on that team.
He was on that team. He was able to get him a ring. Previous to that, he was with the Portland Trail Blazers, and he couldn't get them across the threshold. They had 2 finals appearances. They lost to Detroit, and then they lost to the Bulls in '92. I don't know. For me, he wasn't great enough in the bigger moments. When you look at Clyde Drexler, you can't name one big moment that he had in his entire career. You can't name one big moment that he had. Well, even going back to college, even in college, for people that don't know, he went to the University of Houston. He actually played with Hakeem Olajuwon. They were on the same collegiate team. Even in college, I mean, he doesn't have a big moment. There's nothing about him that was just spectacular. You know what I'm saying? They call him Clyde the Glide. You know, when he played, he could glide in the air. He wasn't that great a shooter to me. Obviously, I know the three-point shot wasn't extremely relevant during their time, but he wasn't a great three-point shooter. He rarely even took them. I don't know. He just, for me, he just, and this is personal. He just didn't do it for me, bro. And I know this is personal, but yeah, I think Clyde Drexler is a little.
You don't think he was a guy that was just steady, just maybe not special, but he was just steady. He knew how to play the game. And I think it could be argued that he was just a victim of the time that he played. He played against some great teams in the finals.
That may be so, but I could probably right now, if you right now, I could probably name 10 shooting guards who I take ahead of him. Right now.
All time?
All time. I could probably name 10 shooting guards I would take ahead of him. Right now. All time. He's I mean, just being real.
Hey guys, that's not juice in this cup. Just letting you guys know. It's clear.
It's apple juice.
That was apple juice. Okay, that's some really good apple juice. You're talking about Clyde Drexler, overrated. All right, well, I'll throw out a name for you guys. And this guy's modern. And I think he's overrated in the standpoint because I get tired of hearing his name. He's a good player, but I do get a little bit tired of hearing his name. CJ McCollum.
Oh. You saw okay. Go ahead.
And the reason why I think he's overrated is because even though he's a gifted scorer, I mean, this is a guy that's been averaging 20 points a game for the last 5 to 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's really unimpactful.
Word.
He's really like if you look at the output that what his points give to a game, or he doesn't give you much as a defender.
Hey, not to cut you off, but hey, once again, guys, for those that are viewing us via Facebook, just go to my page, click that YouTube link, and catch us on YouTube. Go ahead and comment. We definitely welcome your comments, and we'll see your comments on screen here, and we'll be able to interact with you guys live. So for those of you that are watching on Facebook, definitely hit up the YouTube page. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I just said the guy is not really impactful, and I hear people talk about, now he's in New Orleans and he's essentially a number one option, which I don't think will last very long. But I think he's like a guy that he needs to be a number two option on the right team. I don't know. Once again, a lot of people talk about him in high regard. A lot of people think he can lead his own team. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think there's a reason why. I think there's a reason why he's not an all-star. Because I think while he's a solid player and there's a place for him in the NBA, I don't think that he's a truly impactful player. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't think he can lead his own team at all. I think on a winning team, he's second, maybe even a third best player on the winning
exactly.
team. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't see him. You know what I'm saying? He's a guy who can create his own shots. He's a guy who, for stretches, 5, 6, 7 minute stretch, he can carry you. But as far as him being a franchise player and a leader of a team, no, I definitely don't see that either, man. So
I don't see why Portland was so hesitant to move off of him.
Word.
I'd have flipped him a lot sooner, maybe 2 to 3 years ago.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Damian Lillard, he was Damian Lillard's guy, and I think a lot of it had to do with that. You know what I'm saying? I don't think Damian Lillard was probably extremely thrilled about him leaving. So I think a lot of it had to do with that.
Yeah.
That's our overrated shooting guard, and we're gonna go ahead and get through this because we still got a lot of stuff we need to cover on this episode. We still gotta we're definitely gonna get to this NFL. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get through this real quick.
Small forward,
overrated small forward. People are gonna kill me for this one. They're gonna kill me for this one. So, guys, when y'all hear me say it, y'all go ahead, kill me.
I think I know who you're gonna say. Go ahead.
Overrated. I don't think you do, bro. Overrated. Small forward. Dominique Wilkins. Now let me run it down. Let me give him his flowers.
Okay.
Third overall, 1982 draft, 17 seasons. One thing about Dominique Wilkins is that the man could score. Okay, he's a career about 25 point per game average. About 6 rebounds, 2.5 assists. He's a 9-time All-Star. He made 1 All-NBA first team. He was the 1986 scoring champ, and we all know that he's a 2-time NBA dunk contest champ. Probably should have been a 3-time because I ain't gonna lie. Mike robbed him once. I ain't gonna lie. Just looking at it, I ain't gonna lie. With that being said, Dominique Wilkins has never made it past the second round of the playoffs in his entire career. Now we're talking during the 80s. He ran into some fairly good teams. A lot of times he caught himself running into the Boston Celtics, and then later on he ran into the Detroit Pistons. So I mean, he ran into some great historical teams, but he could never quite get across the threshold. I think that he was a one-trick pony in the fact that he could just score. So all he could do was score. If you was looking to him to defend, if you was looking for him to really be a true leader, if you was looking for him to make plays, or you was looking for intangibles from him that would really help a team get over the hump, it just wasn't there for him. He was a one-trick pony. All he could do was score. He gave you a lot of highlights. He was a pretty solid mid-range shooter. But that's it, man. I think his athleticism carried him throughout his career.
So you feel like he was more exciting than actually skilled and good?
I'm not going to say he wasn't skilled. He was definitely exciting. But in the grand scheme of things, he just, as a guy who was a franchise player for that team, he could never get them over the hump. He could never get them across the threshold. You know what I'm saying? And he, like I said, if you go and check out his stats, he put up some real gaudy numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like, the man could score, but I don't know, man. I just thought he was a little overrated. He could never quite get that Atlanta Hawks team over the threshold. And then he found himself toward the back end of his career. He found himself in San Antonio during some of those transition years. He was in San Antonio. He put up some big numbers one of the years in San Antonio when David Robinson was out before they got Tim Duncan. But I mean, they had the worst record in the league, and I mean, I just think that's just pretty indicative of who Dominique Wilkins is. He was going to go out there. He was going to score a lot of points. But as far
he
as
wasn't going to have that
leading your team somewhere or having that impact on your team, making your team better, that just wasn't who he was.
Dominique Wilkins. And it's funny because me and Swan, I don't know why, it's like we're in the same ballpark. Even if we don't pick the same person, we're in the same neighborhood. So since we want to talk about Hawks players, I'm gonna tell you a guy who they just swore up and down. Hawks fans are funny to me. I got a lot of friends that are Hawks fans. That they just wanted to be the guy so bad, but he never could.
Not ISO Joe.
No, I'm gonna say it. I was talking about Josh Smith.
Oh, Josh Smith. Okay.
And Josh Smith was uberly athletic, but they wanted him to become, some people called him, he was like a poor man's LeBron James because he was an athletic freak, 6'9" guy. Yeah, no, for real. But he never fine-tuned his offensive game. Now, he was a defensive guy. I want to say he was 1 or 2 time NBA all-defensive second team, maybe once. Never made an all-star ever in his career. Never averaged 20 points ever in his career. I think his career high is 17. Played in the league from 2004 to 2017. And you could tell after a while, Atlanta we see franchises do this all the time. They put so much stock into a guy that they kind of let other guys fall by the wayside. So we saw Atlanta putting stock into Josh Smith when they had Al Horford and Jeff Teague. And as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, Josh Smith left right before that Hawks had that nice run.
Yeah, I do remember. I believe he went to Houston. I think so.
Right before they had that nice little run with Kyle Korver, Jeff Teague, Al Horford. I want to say it was 13, 14?
Yep.
So, yeah, Josh Smith was always an overrated player to me. I used to hear Atlanta Hawks fans talk about him like, he was just that dude or he was the next great small forward in the NBA, and I just could never see it. So, yeah, that's an overrated player to me.
So he's another guy that jumped right out of high school. Another guy who kind of ushered in this era of, freakish athletes and guys being drafted off of their athleticism, vice their actual skill. He's another guy. He never quite developed a consistent jump shot. Never develop as a one-on-one scorer. Didn't necessarily have a post game. A lot of his scoring really depended on his athleticism. Either he was running the floor, catching lobs, or maybe he was able to, attack the offensive glass and get a few rebounds and putbacks. But the bulk of his scoring really just kind of depended on his athleticism, and he never developed into the type of player that I think the Atlanta Hawks thought he would be upon drafting him. So, yeah, another solid pick there. All right, power forwards. Once again, I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this one.
I got a phenomenal one for you, but go ahead.
I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this one. Overrated all-time power forward. You ready for this, bro?
Throw it out.
Anthony Davis. He's a tad bit overrated, guys. He was the first pick in 2012. Career averages of about 23, 10, and 2 assists. He averages about 2 blocks and a steal a game over his career. He's an 8-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA first team guy, 2-time All-Defensive first team. He's led the league in blocks 3 times over his career, and obviously he won a championship in 2020 with the Lakers in the bubble. Anthony Davis, when he was the man in New Orleans, they rarely got to the playoffs for one, and when they did, they never got out of the first round. Excuse me. They got out of the first round one time.
Okay.
When I believe they beat Portland and lost in the second round. Majority of the time there, he didn't get to the playoffs. Okay. One of his biggest issues, obviously his skill level is phenomenal as a big. There's not too much that he can't do as a big. But as they say, the best ability is availability.
He can't stay healthy.
And it seemed like he walks into the gym and he just gets hurt. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's been a problem for him throughout his entire career. And I think for me, it's starting to really put him into that overrated stage. Now, the thing about him is I believe, this is his 10th season in the NBA. So he still has maybe 4, 5, 6 prime years left. So he still has time to really change this one. And my wife says she don't know if she really agree with that one. But he still has time to change that narrative. But I don't know. I think he's a little overrated.
It's a tough one because I think that, he is a victim of, not being able to stay healthy. We could go ahead and agree. And I'll say this, as much as I'm not a big, guy that bangs the table for Anthony Davis. I always felt like he was, I felt like there was a stretch where he really was a superstar. And you could argue that, some people felt like he would be the domineering force or be the face of the NBA, kind of what Giannis is becoming right now.
Word.
But you're right. He's never been a leader. And I would say kind of in defense of him, I think he has genuinely done the best with what he's had to work with. Remember, Anthony Davis came in. He was a little bit undersized of a guy. You saw him really over the years kind of put on weight. He was more of a defensive guy in college, and you saw him kind of develop more of his offensive game and become, a guy that can kind of take over the game as a scorer.
Mm-hmm.
And LeBron fans, I hate this, but I think, you get a healthy Anthony Davis, in the finals after that COVID layoff. And really, I think after a while, LeBron was kind of hands off, and he really let Anthony Davis take the reins. I think he was the key reason why the Lakers were able to win the finals that year, that bubble championship. So
I think that's what a lot of people expected to happen this year. For LeBron to kind of take that step back and for Anthony Davis to really be the man, but
he can't.
That hasn't happened, and it's been a disaster for him.
Yeah, but once again, one thing I will agree is the best ability is availability. If you can't stay healthy, you can't remain among the ranks of the elite. And I got into an argument with a friend earlier this year. I told him, I said, "Hey, man, I'm getting tired of y'all talking about Anthony Davis as a top 5 player in the NBA. He's not anymore."
And I think, and once again, it's not necessarily because of his skill level, but because he can't stay healthy. He can't stay out there.
Think about this. Think about how crazy this sounds. This is how much Anthony Davis struggles with his health.
Mm-hmm.
Joel Embiid is in my top 4 players in the NBA right now. And Joel Embiid has a spotty health history. Agreed. But that shows you how much more Anthony Davis gets hurt than Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid's always hurt.
Agreed.
So that speaks volumes. Yeah.
He is. But let's see. Power forward. Who did you have?
Oh, I had, you know what? Since we talk about power forwards, I had a guy. You guys see me, I did I kind of moved my eyebrows earlier when he said a certain name. So I'm gonna actually I'm gonna tell you who the name is, and because I see him, he played for my Lakers for a little bit. But I'm gonna tell a guy that played for your Bulls, and that's Carlos Boozer. And I thought he was so overrated. And I'm gonna let you tell me why he had those dominant years with the Bulls.
Dominant years with the Bulls. Dominant years with the Bulls.
He did most of his work with Utah. But Swan, how about this? Swan, I want you to tell me what you don't like about Carlos Boozer. He tells me, and I always laugh.
First of all, Carlos Boozer is all talk and no game. Okay, he used to run up and down the court doing all this yelling. All this. He would yell when he didn't even make the play. Like, bro, chill out. And Carlos Boozer, first of all, he was only about 6'8". Yeah, now, mind you, I watched him a lot, especially when he was with the Bulls. Carlos, if you put a guy on him who was about 6'8", 6'7", 6'8", you got a smaller guy on him, he'll put him in the blender. Okay, he'll give him, and he has a really solid post game and a really solid mid range jumper. Right. So you put a guy on him that's his size, maybe a little smaller, he'll put him in the blender. The moment that you put a guy on him, longer guys or more physical guys, he folded like a lawn chair. He was nowhere
Good night,
to
Irene.
be found. Good night, Irene. He was nowhere to be found, man. Definitely a very overrated player. I think he made a couple all-star teams. I think that because he was playing in Utah with Darren Williams, and at the time, Darren Williams was, like we said, I think you could have argued that he was the best point guard in the league at one point. I think because he was in Utah playing with Darren Williams, I think that his stock kind of skyrocketed at that point. And so when it came to that free agency season, the Bulls see him and they just jumped on it and they paid him and they thought that, you know, he would really be, you know, a real staple for the organization.
But the
But I
time
don't
was
think that,
fast.
I don't think that panned out at all because I think they realized, just like I did as a fan watching, that he struggles against bigger defenders. You know what I'm saying? He was never that, you know, 20, 23, 25 and 10 guy that I think the Bulls had envisioned him being. Yeah, I can't stand Carlos Boozer, bro. Like he just be like he's so rah and like, dude,
And
you're not that guy. You were never that guy, bro.
and
Like
and think
he's pretty soft.
and think of how bad, you know, as a Lakers fan, I had to watch the Lakers trade Pau Gasol for him. And Pau Gasol had some productive years for the Bulls.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, he had some
Man,
product.
I
There was
love Powell.
Yeah,
I
but
love,
there was some years, we talk about this all the time, especially when in regards to Carmelo Anthony, that if Carmelo Anthony goes to the Bulls, they're a contender with,
I always said this. If Carmelo really wanted a ring, he would have came to the Bulls.
and he had two opportunities.
Two. Yep.
He had two opportunities to come to the Bulls.
If he really wanted a
So
ring, he'd have came to the Bulls. But I mean, as we all know, at that time, Carmelo was chasing his money. He wanted his money.
yeah,
And hey,
rightfully
to each
so.
his own. Hey, to each his own. By all means, do
Mhm.
your thing. Get your paper. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, he was chasing his money. But yeah, man, Boozer was. Oh my God, bro!
Ah!
I can't stand Carlos Boozer, bro. I can't stand him.
I had to throw out somebody that I knew was going to get under his skin. So he's always hated Carlos Boozer.
Word. All right, last but not
Center.
least, my overrated center historically. For
Let's
me,
see.
it was really only one option for this, and it was Bill Walton. Bill Walton was the number one pick in the 1974 draft. So he was actually in the league for 14 years. However, he only played 10 years because of injuries, foot injuries, which really ruined his career. Foot
Mhm.
injuries kept him out of 4 entire seasons.
Ah.
Okay. So it really ruined his career. He's a career 13 point, 10 rebound, 3 assists, 2 block guy. Over his career. Now let me say this. He won an MVP. He won an MVP and he won an NBA MVP in 1977-78 season. In 1977, he actually led Portland to a championship, and he was the Finals MVP that season. And he made All NBA first team. With that being said, Bill Walton has never averaged more than 20 points in his entire career. As a matter of fact, his highest scoring season, he averaged about 18.9. So he's never been a 20-point per game scorer. And then obviously toward the back end of his career, he tagged along with the Boston Celtics and got him another ring. And he actually won 6th Man of the Year one of those seasons with them. Bill Walton was a very, very, very talented center. Don't get me wrong. I really don't have any quarrel with his game. And in fact, he's actually one of the better passing big men in NBA history.
True.
But I think unfortunately, injuries robbed him of his prime. They really did. They robbed him of his prime. And so I don't think we got to see an extended period of time of the best Bill Walton. But yet he's a Hall of Famer.
Which Shaq hates.
I mean, and I mean, you know,
Shaq
sometimes
is very adamant about that.
sometimes Shaq is a little rough, but I mean, on this one, I might have to agree with him. I mean, okay, he did everything you probably want to do as an NBA player. He did win an MVP. He did win a championship. But we can't really say that he was a dominant NBA player for an extended period of time.
But
now, if you want to add in what he did in college, can't argue with it.
But remember, it's the
Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. And I think a lot of people, for people out there listening, for people out there watching, I think we got to remember that when we talk about the Basketball Hall of Fame, that it's not just the NBA Hall of Fame, it's the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. And so a lot of things are tied into people being Hall of Famers. And I think with Bill Walton, in Bill Walton's case, I think when you combine what he did at UCLA, I think that's what really makes him a Hall of Famer. But as far as his NBA career, very overrated.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Bill Walton, especially when we're talking about Hall of Famers. I'm going to tell you a guy a little close to the chest, especially we're talking about a lot of Bulls now. And I got to throw out your boy Joakim Noah.
Oh,
And I say this because I think Joakim Noah was a role player that was miscast.
I'm not gonna lie. I can see why you say this though.
I think he was a role player that was miscast as a star.
Yeah,
and I think he kind of got thrust into that role when Derrick Rose got hurt. And he tried his best. I think he was a good locker room guy. I know he tried hard. Big trash talker. Never a great scorer. I think his career high is maybe 12 or 13. Phenomenal rebounder, right? And able defender. I think he was 2-time NBA All-Defensive First Team. But
he was a great passing big man.
Great passer, exactly. Great passer as well. But he was never a guy that could transcend or could get his team over the hump. Or he wasn't a transcendent type of player. He wasn't a player he wasn't a plus player. He was a guy that could add some value, but he really wasn't a plus player that could help get you over the hump. And I used to see we're watching NBA, watching TNT, and I used to see, graphics and stuff where they would put him up, with Dirks and Tim Duncans and stuff like that. And they put him up with other big men in the NBA. And I'm like, dude, he's not in that category. Like he's just a role player that kind of got thrust into this leadership type of role. And man, I remember the most memorable game. I don't know if it was in the playoffs or regular season when he played against Washington, and Gortat and Nene, they had a field day.
Oh, yeah.
It was sad. It was almost embarrassing to watch. So I was like, man, dude, they punked him that game,
They did.
They did. So once again, I respect, Joakim Noah's game, but how people used to talk about him. I have a buddy that's a big Joakim Noah fan, and he talked about him like he was literally one of the top 4 big men in the NBA. And to me, he just was never that. So I feel like he's just a little bit overrated based off of how the public the spotlight they tried to put him in.
And you know what? I can definitely see that. I think when you look at Joakim Noah, especially those Bulls years, I think he was an overachiever.
Thank you.
I think that one of those years, and I think one year he actually finished maybe 3rd or 4th in MVP voting. And I think it was more so from a standpoint of the impact that he had on the team. He grew to be a pretty solid leader.
True.
I think, and like you said, I don't think he's ever averaged more than maybe 13, 14 points a game, but he was getting about that and about maybe 11 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists, But the impact that he had on the game and on that team as a leader, especially with Derrick Rose being out, I don't think anyone was really expecting us to make playoff runs, but yet with his leadership, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. He was helping us, you know what I'm saying, get there. So
look, Joakim Noah is the Kyle Lowry of centers.
Maybe so, bro. Maybe so. But I have more love for Joakim than I do for Kyle, man. God bless him. All right, good people. It is that time for the Rooted in NFL segment. However, before we get to our divisional breakdown, it's been a slew, and I mean a slew of NFL transactions via free agency or via trade. So we definitely want to take some time and get into some of that and break some of that down. So, Kenneth, I'm gonna ask you, bro. Well, first of all, as far as free agent signings and or NFL transactions, what are a few of the transactions that stood out to you or that you liked? What are a few of the moves that you actually loved for some of these NFL teams?
Okay, so there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened. A lot of interesting transactions. Ones that I should know is forever a legend. I'm sure to you Chicago, to you Chicagans, he probably is, right? But I think J.C. Jackson to the Chargers was really big, maybe bigger than some people know. I
Bigger than the Khalil Mack move for them.
Yes, bigger because
Okay.
you're getting J.C. Jackson, who's still young, who's in his prime. They signed him 5 years, 82.5 million. I think, if I'm not mistaken, now he's the highest paid corner in the National Football League, as rightfully so he should be, because I think the last couple of years he's been the best corner in the league.
I think
Literally,
I think he's led the league in interceptions over the past couple years.
the past 2 to 3 years he has. And you saw him, J.C. Jackson rose. This was an undrafted guy, and he rises from the ashes and becomes their head honcho to the point to where they're like, after they just paid him, they're like, okay, well, let's get rid of Stephon Gilmore. So
I know, right?
he made Stephon Gilmore, who won Defensive Player of the Year, he made him expendable.
He did.
So once again, he's young. He's 26 years old, just entering his prime. He's a guy that you can match up, put on the number one corner. He can play press man. He can play zone. He can take the ball away. He can help him run support. He's a physical guy. He's a big guy. He's 6'1". And surprisingly, something I didn't know is he actually has history with a few people in that organization. I think he knows one of the coaches on the defensive side of the ball, and him and Derwin James have known each other since they were in high school. So they have a little bit of connection from there. But he's going to come in and he's going to give them stability at the number one cornerback spot. He's going to allow Asante Samuel Jr., who's a young stud, to be the number two corner and really develop. Because last year they had Chris Harris Jr., a little bit over the hill. We know Chris Harris Jr. was great in his own right, but
I loved him. I used to love him, man.
Right.
I loved him.
But now they get a guy that can really be that domineering force in the secondary or at corner, because they still got Derwin James. Yeah. So I like that pick.
And hopefully Derwin James can stay healthy and stay on the field.
Exactly. So the Chargers are putting themselves in a position to really turn things around very fast. He mentioned Khalil Mack. I think that is a really good trade. And they didn't have to give up much to get him. I think Chicago was kind of to the point to where they knew he was.
Don't make me cry on the set, please.
He's a Chicago fan, right? I think they got to a point to where they realized they weren't in a position as a franchise to really take advantage of his abilities. The way I said this, and I on the Break Room Breakdown, I talked about this in regards to Julio Jones. It's kind of like me right now going, don't get me wrong, I'm doing well for myself, but let's say me right now, I go and I get the most expensive, or I get an expensive Ferrari or something like that. Right. Nice car. Beautiful. I get a nice, beautiful car. As soon as I pull that sucker off the lot, it loses value. That's one.
Yep.
And if I crash it, I really can't afford to pay for the repairs. Or even if I do, and I'm gonna be hurt. So you look at some of these franchises that aren't good, or they're devoid of talent, or they're pouring so many resources into this one great player. They don't have a good enough team for this player's impact to really be substantial.
And you think that was the case with
the Bears?
And the Bears?
Yeah, I think he's still a phenomenal player, but I think they said, "Hey, we're not going to win a championship anytime soon. We paid all these resources for this guy. He's still great, but he's expensive. We can't afford him, and it's not like him getting 7 to 10 sacks and 5 forced fumbles is going to help us, because we're probably not going to win. Probably not going to win anything substantial anytime soon with his contract." So I think that's why they traded him. And the Chargers are going to take him, pair him with Joey Bosa, and they're going to do work.
Okay. And what about and the move? One of the moves that I think stood out in the same division was the Oakland Raiders trading for Devontae Adams.
Vegas.
I'm sorry, excuse me. They'll forever be Oakland.
I'll fall into that hole too. Trust me.
The Las Vegas Raiders trading for Devontae Adams. And I think that he's the perfect receiver. I think he has the perfect number 2 receiver with Hunter Renfrow over there, and then Darren Waller there. I think that Josh Jacobs in the backfield, Derek Carr. I think that they're really going to be set up for success, and it's going to be interesting to see how new coach Josh McDaniels schemes things up and how he's able to use those guys and how successful this offense is going to be. What do you think about that?
I love that trade, that transaction. One, Devontae Adams is a West Coast guy, went to Fresno State. And as everybody knows,
played with Derek Carr, right?
Played with Derek Carr, so they have that connection. So they've always been friends, and he's actually spoke about it within the past few years that he would be willing to go and play with Derek Carr at some point. So obviously now it's kind of came to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
But the Raiders are getting the NFL's best receiver, who's just entering his prime. Like Devontae Adams, probably the last year and a half, has really came on and pushed himself into that conversation of becoming the top guy in the league. You're getting him. He's still young. He's 29 years old. He's arguably the league's best route runner.
Okay.
So you get him. He's your.
I think his new teammate might have an argument for that as well.
I think he's a better route runner than
Hunter Renfrow.
I think he's a better route runner than Hunter Renfrow. But I respect Hunter Renfrow's game, and that's nothing against Hunter Renfrow. But Josh McDaniels, I said this the other day. This is the most talent Josh McDaniels has ever had to work with in his career, in his life.
Yeah.
Because you're putting Devontae Adams, right? He can play all receiver spots. He can play the slot, the X, the Y. You still have Darren Waller, who's a top 5 tight end when healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter Renfrow has ascended to being one of the best slot weapons in the league. You still got Josh Jacobs in the backfield, who's one of the better receiving running backs in the league, running and receiving. And you still got a young guy like what's his name, Brian Edwards, still coming along, who could possibly make the jump this year to hopefully next year and become a solid option at that Y spot. So, right. I mean, man, like that is really substantial for that division. The AFC West, we just covered them, I want to say a week ago.
We did, yeah.
And they're shaping up to be the most competitive division in football. We saw the Broncos add Russell Wilson. The Raiders said, hold my beer.
On real. And then, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, did they get Chandler Jones as well?
They got Chandler Jones. They signed well. Chandler Jones in free agency. And Chandler Jones is a phenomenal edge rusher, so
right. Put him on the other end with Max Crosby.
Yes. So he's, and he's a veteran guy, and he's a guy that has Super Bowl experience. He was with Josh McDaniels in New England. He won a Super Bowl in New England. So, I mean, the Raiders are doing some really, really good things. Kind of uncharacteristic for them because usually they usually don't make too many good or smart transactions. But they didn't go after They didn't go after sexy picks. They went after guys that not only are great but are really going to fit their system substantially. So I think Chandler Jones is going to pay immediate dividends across from Max Crosby, and Devontae Adams. I mean, hell, he's going to be the best receiver they've had since Tim Brown.
Any other free agency moves that really stood out to you positively? We talked about what Oakland did. We talked about some of the things that the Chargers did. Obviously, the AFC West is just going to be a dogfight. Any other free agency moves that stood out to you positively?
Positively, okay, I'll tell you two, and they're other edge rushers. By the way, guys, this is a big edge rusher free agency. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. One is close to the chest, and you should know why. The Denver Broncos acquired Randy Gregory from Dallas. Man, this joker. But you know what?
Are you okay? Are you okay?
I'm okay. But you know what? And I was upset. But
for those that don't know, Kenneth Tiberius here is a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. Okay, all caps on that. Okay, huge all Dallas caps, Cowboys
huge
fan.
Cowboys fan. That right. But I think that situation. So for people that don't know, Randy Gregory was supposed to sign a 5-year, $70 million contract with the Dallas Cowboys. Then when it came time to contract time, he didn't like some of the verbiage that was used in it. I guess it talked about kind of. They were able to cancel some of the guarantees in his contract money-wise.
They were trying to protect themselves because he has a history. They were trying to protect themselves.
Exactly. So was it fines and suspensions? They were able to kind of take some of that money back or cancel some of the guarantees, and he wasn't really big on that. So he chose the Broncos, who essentially gave him the same contract with none of the verbiage in it. So very unfortunate because Dallas, and I know a lot of people are, not big fans of Jerry Jones, and I get it. But the truth is that he stood by players the way I've never seen an owner stick by a damn player.
He has.
And Randy Gregory has been suspended a good
especially ones that he's drafted.
Yeah. When Randy Gregory got drafted, I was living in Japan. I was in my barracks room. And I was saying
because he's in year 7 already.
No, he got drafted in 2015. team. So yeah, you're right. By year 7, year 8. So
Man.
it's been a while. He's 29 years old. He's an older guy, but this is just a reminder that the NFL is a business. And the truth is that we see teams do what they want to do in terms of business. So what may be in the best business interest of that ball club or that franchise, we can't get mad when players exercise the same option. So that was just an example of it. Randy Gregory chose to go to Denver. We'll see what happens. Hopefully he's successful there. I know they got a really good defensive foundation there. Still got Bradley Chubb. Still got Justin Simmons. They got Patrick Surtain last year. So Dramonte Jones from Ohio State, who's
I
my pet cat.
love Patrick Surtain.
Patrick Surtain, yeah, he's a guy that kind of came on late, or came on and really essentially probably should have made the Pro Bowl, but he kind of got snubbed. He's a rookie guy, but yeah, he's going to a great defense. He's going to a team that really is a contender now.
Yeah.
So
win now for them.
Yeah. So that was one that stood out to me. I think Randy Gregory is gonna be productive for them. And another one, and this one is it's gonna be good, but it also has some question marks, and that's Von Miller to the Bills.
You know what? I like the move. I was surprised that it was for as long as it was. They gave him like 6 years, 90 mil or something?
Shit, 120.
Oh my God. I was surprised at the length of it, you know what I'm saying? Because I mean, granted, Von Miller's a stud, future Hall of Famer, but I don't see them getting 6 years of prime Von Miller. I think even last year, although he came on strong toward the end of last year, I think even last year we started to see him kind of take a step in the opposite direction, so to speak.
Well, he's getting older. He's entering that stage of his career. I don't want to say he's quite there, but he's not far from where Dwight Freeney was his last few years, where he was just a journeyman that could help pass rush and teach young guys. And he's with it. Like Dwight Freeney was with Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, when they went to the Super Bowl.
Right. Yep.
So Von Miller's at that point to where he's already punched his Hall of Fame ticket, 100 plus sack guy. 2-time NFL champion, made multiple Pro Bowls. I think somewhere between 8 to 10. He's a guy you bring into your ball club that's gonna immediately help your young, because Buffalo has a lot of young pass rushers, little be known, that have the potential to be good. They got AJ Epinesa from Iowa. They drafted the kid out of Miami, Gregory Rousseau.
Okay.
And I think that they brought him in because he's going to be able to help and teach and mentor these guys, but also give them some upside in the pass rush area. So I like the move because I think that he can be the piece and the personality to help them get over the hump. Aaron Donald actually talked about how big of a role Von Miller played in that locker room, and he said Von Miller was almost mentoring him and telling him, okay, hey, this is when they need to hear your voice, because obviously Aaron Donald was a leader of that football team. This is where you need to be the guy. So I think he's going to go into that, especially that defense. He's going to go there. He's going to do that for them. My only question is, how much does he really have left in the tank?
And that's my question too. But not to mention, and I know we're gonna get to them a little later, but you're adding Von Miller to a team that already had the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL. Quite as skill, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So you add a pass rusher, and maybe, who knows? Maybe, like I said, I see, maybe a couple more years of Von Miller at this level, and who knows? That may be all Buffalo needs at this time to go and get that Super Bowl, because I think for a team like them, it's Super Bowl or bust almost now.
Oh, it is. It is. They're a Super Bowl. They're top 3 team in the NFL. Easy.
They are. So, we talked about some moves that you thought were great for some of these NFL teams. What were some moves that you kind of questioned or that kind of made you raise an eyebrow? I'll give you one for me personally. Christian Kirk signed with the Jaguars, and not so much that he went there, but they gave him 3 years, I believe, about 68 million. So he's looking at over 20-some million dollars a year, which puts him in top wide receiver territory. And I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a solid guy. He's still young. He still has a lot of upside, but I don't think he's worth that much personally. What you think?
So I don't either. I think it was a big contract, and I think it completely screwed up the wide receiver market
It
because
did.
it screwed it up, and I'm gonna tell you guys why. Devontae Adams and other receivers, once they saw Christian Kirk get that contract, they said, "Well, shit, if he's worth this, I know I'm worth way more."
Absolutely.
So, if I'm not
Talking about a guy
mistaken,
that wasn't even a number one guy where he came from.
he wasn't. He
You
wasn't.
know,
So, as far as the Jaguars go, I sometimes I see some of these the decisions that these franchises make, and I'm like, dog, I want to see what they see.
yeah.
like let me see things through your eyes. So, I mean, we never know. Maybe they feel like there's some unlocked ability. You know,
hmm
when Christian Kirk was coming out, he was held in high regard. People called him Baby Beckham.
Oh
When
my
he was
God.
at
Now they getting a little out of hand now.
well, when he was at Texas Southern, he was a pretty dominant player. You know,
At
not Texas
Texas
Southern.
Southern though.
My bad. I said Texas Southern, not Texas Southern. He played at Texas A&M. Excuse
A&M.
me, guys.
Okay.
Texas A&M, right? When he was at Texas A&M, he was a pretty dominant guy. So I think maybe Jacksonville feels like this is a guy that I can feature, and this is going to be something to look out for. Because we're gonna, obviously we talked about the Rams the other day. I think Sean McVay, what he did last year, kind of gave teams a formula to make their slot guy the featured receiver in their offense. And I think you're
hmm
going to see a lot of teams trying to follow suit with that formula. So maybe,
I think a lot of guys are kind of heading that direction. I think you've seen that a lot with Devontae Adams.
well, true, but Devontae Adams is also can be an X and a Y,
I mean,
but
like you said earlier, you can slip him.
you can do everything with him,
Yeah.
right? So, maybe Jacksonville feels like Christian Kirk, who's a plus route runner, could
hmm
possibly do some of that within their scheme. So I don't know. They paid him a lot. I can't, guys get overpaid every day in free agency, but I definitely think that was one of the big ones.
Any other moves that kind of happened that you kind of just maybe raised an eyebrow at, or you kind of was a little questionable about whether it was trades or free agency signings or how much someone actually signed for? Were there any other moves that you just kind of like, what is that?
I'll tell you this. I don't think that Cleveland was in position to trade for Deshaun Watson. I think that they gave up a lot for him. And I don't think they're in a position to take advantage of his talents right away. And they're devoid of talent around him. All they have is Amari Cooper. It's to the point.
I was going to say, I think they definitely need to get some depth at the wide receiver position.
But let's be honest, they're in the AFC. We're looking at the AFC, how it's shaped up the past 2 years, and I mean, it's not a walk in the park. It's not going to be no walk in the park over there.
I know, because first of all, I see at least 3 teams out the AFC West getting there.
At least 3 teams,
and
I have a fair argument that all 4 teams in the AFC West are probably better than the Browns right now, currently as standing.
And
so
you that's a valuable argument. You know what I'm saying?
It's a valid argument. So
and then you got Buffalo, who's going to be right there.
Kansas City will be back.
Yeah, obviously Kansas City's going
to Tennessee will be
Tennessee's probably going to win their division. I'm still interested. Once again, though, I'm still interested to see what the Colts are going to do with their quarterback position. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I'm holding off. I'm taking Tennessee in that division right now, but I'm interested to see what the Colts are going to do at quarterback, because I think they're another team who's ready to make a move, who's can kind of be in win now mode, dependent upon who they put in their quarterback position. And then, looking at the AFC North, I mean, how do you not consider Cincinnati the favorite there, seeing how they just made it to the Super Bowl?
They're the far and away favorite. They were able to retain some of their guys, and now they're adding pieces to that offensive line to protect Joe Burrow even longer.
Mm-hmm. And you add the experience. I mean, they're a young team. Like, they're going to be dangerous they're a young team. Joe Burrow's in his second year. Jamar Chase was a rookie. Like, they're a young team.
Joe Burrow said this. Joe Burrow said this when they got into the playoffs. He told people, just get ready. This is the new floor. This is the new floor for this team.
Absolutely.
This is the new bare minimum.
And that's the way you want the leader of your team thinking.
Right. So I wasn't, don't get me wrong, I liked it. I liked that he was able to finally get moved. But for him, I would have liked to have seen him go to win Atlanta. Only because I think that would have been a team where maybe they could have started over. Maybe they traded a few young pieces, maybe a Kyle Pitts or AJ Terrell, two guys that are really that are ascending to becoming top players in this league.
I think he would have been in the same position he was in with the Texans, though.
Well, here's the difference. He's not playing in anywhere near dominant of a division. Now he's in a division right now where he's easily the third best team in the division. The Browns are easily the third best team in the division.
I mean, okay, let's say, you know what I'm saying, for kicks and giggles, let's say he goes to Atlanta. Obviously, they're not better than Tampa Bay.
Okay, and who else
are you willing? Are you willing? So are you willing? And once again, we got to see another team who we need to see who they're going to slip in at quarterback. But I mean, seeing what they do at quarterback, I'm not sure I would put them ahead of the Saints.
I would.
Well, I think dependent. I think that's dependent on who they get at quarterback, because the Saints are still returning a top 10, top 5 defense.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you this: without Sean Payton, the head coach, I will put them over the Saints because I don't believe in Dennis Allen as a head coach.
I mean, but I think they still once again, we talking about a top 5 defense. They still got the weapons there offensively with Alvin Kamara. If Michael Thomas can stay healthy, I don't think
Michael Thomas is there when the season starts because he doesn't want to play for that franchise, and he's made that abundantly clear.
Well, I guess that's another issue.
I just feel like that division is more in a flux. And to tell you the truth, I'll give you another option. He would have been better off going to Carolina. And let's say Carolina gives up picks. Guess what? He goes to Carolina.
They probably decide to keep McCaffrey if he goes there. I think they keep.
Honestly, if I'm them, I get rid of McCaffrey because he can't stay healthy.
Why? I would want that pairing with him and Deshaun Watson.
Well, here's the thing. Let me ask you this: Would you rather pair him with Deshaun Watson with DJ Moore and what's his name, Rodney Anderson, without a Christian McCaffrey? Because can we be real? And I think I can say this: we can find running backs in every single draft, and they have a guy. They already have a guy.
Yeah, obviously the running back position is
it's plentiful. They already have a guy in Chuba Hubbard who is looking like he can be a starter in this league and be pretty productive. Christian McCaffrey hasn't really played in 2 years.
But I think Christian McCaffrey is special. When he does play, he's special. He's one of a kind.
But what did you say about Anthony Davis earlier?
The best ability is availability. I get
2 years. I can understand one injury plagued year, but essentially 2 years he's barely touched the field. And that's what I tell you. I argue a lot, from my guy. But when it comes, I go off on a tangent when it comes to running backs. But we're seeing other running backs that are getting paid these big contracts and they're not staying healthy. And Christian McCaffrey is an example of that. I would move off of him. I think he would welcome a new scenery. I think he would have been able to go to Houston and thrive. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. So let's say you put Deshaun Watson in a Carolina team. He still has two really good wide receivers. You got Chuba Hubbard at running back. You could draft a guy, and you have a young defense with a lot of foundational pieces.
I believe they were another top 5 defense as well.
In the beginning of the season,
just kept.
Well, they tailed off towards the end of the season, but the early in the season they really were flexing their muscles. So they're a talented team. And Brian Burns, that pass rusher, he's becoming a top tier guy.
Oh yeah.
So. That would have been my pick for him, but now he goes to Cleveland, and now he's in a situation where he might not even make the playoffs.
So you think, say, in a Carolina, you think it would have been
he'd have been a wild card team?
Okay, that's what I was going to say. You think it'd have been easier for them to make the playoffs in the NFC, vice in the AFC, where it's going to be a gauntlet?
Easily. Okay. Yeah. So now he's looking at a situation where he might not make the playoffs, and that's just the truth. So. Yeah, so that was probably the big move I didn't like. But when jumping in really quick,
and they gave him a ton of guaranteed money.
They gave him a lot of
the $273, was it? Fully guaranteed.
Now the first year, they have flexibility the first year because he's only getting $1 million that first year because they want.
Yeah, I know. I think it was something to the fact that, say, if he does get fined or suspended, they wanted it to come out of that $1 million vice. the rest. So
exactly, which is smart, and
is
fair. So so that's the move I really wasn't fond of, but hey, it's here. We'll see what happens, and he's definitely fighting an uphill battle. So I don't got Cleveland making the playoffs, right? As currently stands, I don't have Cleveland in the playoffs, even with Deshaun Watson. So we'll see what happens.
I think they'll be right outside of it. I don't know if they're done making moves though.
Yeah.
And then we got to see what they do in the draft. But yeah, I think I'd agree. I think I have them right outside of the playoffs. And since we knocked out some of our free agency takes, we're gonna go ahead and get into a little further into our Rooted in Football segment, and we're gonna cover another conference in the NFL. And this week we're going with the AFC East.
Yes.
So we're gonna jump right into it. Actually, bro, I'm gonna start with the divisional winner. I'm gonna start with the Buffalo Bills. They went 11-6 last year. They got the 25th pick in this year's draft. Obviously, we just discussed one of their major free agency signing in Von Miller. Also, as quiet as it's kept, they lost the tight end Knox, but they picked up OJ Howard, who I think if OJ Howard can stay healthy, he can be a real nice weapon for him.
He can.
As far as their draft needs, I know they lost Cole Beasley. So I know for me, I was thinking maybe they go wide receiver, maybe they go running back, because I'm not a big Singletary guy. So possibly they go running back. We're talking about a team who, as I mentioned earlier, they had statistically they had the best defense in the league. So what do you think about Buffalo Bills and their outlook going into the 2022 season?
Probably in the best position you could want to be in as a football team.
Mm-hmm.
They're right there. They're on the cusp of being a Super Bowl winning team. And there's no doubt in my mind that if they beat the Chiefs, that they could possibly have won last year. That's how close they are.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
They're that close.
13 seconds away.
13 seconds away. Their defense just didn't show up. So they're the second. They're the second or third best team in the NFL, especially after this addition of Von Miller. They filled the edge rusher need. You could probably see them do a couple other things in the draft. We don't know what else is going to happen. The biggest thing for them is they're going to need to form a formidable running game outside of Josh Allen. I get tired of seeing Josh Allen on fucking design runs. It gets old, bro. That's your quarterback. And you got this man on design runs. So
I agree.
He really is. I hate this, I've said this before, but he really is like the white Cam Newton. That's a better passer.
Oh man!
But no, can we?
No. That's a fair.
Carolina
comparison.
used Cam on all these design runs, and if they don't be careful, he's going to end up like, maybe not arm wise, but he's going to end up like Cam getting hurt, and it could impact his career.
Wear him down. Yeah.
So for me, I looked at the running back position, and I got cute. It was two options I looked. Obviously, one NFL transaction and one in the draft. So for a transaction, a guy that I looked at that I think that they could possibly, they have a guy that has ties. I wouldn't be surprised. They got Saquon Barkley there in New York. Imagine Saquon Barkley in an offense with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen.
And a lot of the pressure that's on him in New York wouldn't be on him in Buffalo.
Wouldn't be on him in Buffalo. You could probably still run Josh Allen a little bit, but you really need a guy with the ability to be that lead back. You could use him with his plus receiving skills. So I would love Saquon Barkley in that system. You could trade for him. I think you could probably get him for about a third or a fourth. I don't think he's worth the two because one, he struggled a little bit to stay healthy, and he's still kind of getting his confidence back after tearing his ACL.
Yeah.
So that's the transaction I had, Saquon Barkley. Now, as far as the draft, it's a guy that I looked at. This running back draft is not sexy. So it's not that many guys that you're looking at that you're like, oh, he's a guy. It's a guy for Iowa State that I really like. His name is Breece Hall.
Okay.
He's a bigger back, about 5'11", 220, 230. He's a north to south runner.
Okay.
North to south runner gets straight to, and he'd be
Love that.
Yeah, and he'd be a really good parent for Singletary. I don't think they should get rid of Singletary. I think Singletary is good for what they want to do offensively.
But you don't think he's a bell cow back or anything like that? You don't think he's the answer?
No, I think Singletary is a good piece and is a good part in a two-back system. So I think if you pair Singletary with a bruiser, like Brees Hall. He's a size speed product. And the thing is, he has a nice, nasty demeanor. He finishes runs. He can actually do everything. So he's not just a runner. He can receive as well, and he can do some things as far as a blocker as well. So I think they need that big body guy that can really be that bell cow type of back for them and free up Singletary and not put all these unrealistic expectations on him.
Right.
But that was my pick for them because the thing is you got to prolong Josh Allen's career. You got to stop running your quarterback like that because it's not going to work out in the long run.
I agree, man. But as you said, I mean, they're definitely top 2 or 3 teams in the
NFL.
And absolutely Super Bowl or bust for them. And,
yes.
we'll see what happens. We're gonna move on to the next team, the New England Patriots. They finished 10-7 in the division. They got the 21st pick in this year's NFL draft. They ended up, obviously, we know they hang their hat on defense with Bill Belichick. They were 4th in team defense, 2nd in scoring defense, allowing right under 18 points a game. As far as their draft needs, I felt like they needed a wide receiver. I felt like they could also go O-line or maybe even a linebacker, get some defensive help. I think a lot for them this season is going to depend on the progression of Mac Jones. I think we've seen him come out and jump out there to a hot start, but obviously, you know, him being a rookie, I think he kind of hit that rookie raw. So, what is your outlook on the Patriots in this 2022 season, and what do you see them going in the draft? And a distinct difference between this offseason and last offseason for them is that they've been fairly quiet in free agency. And last year, we seen them go out there and spend a ton of money. This year, we haven't heard much from them. So, what do you see for them?
I think New England is. They're ahead of schedule as far as their rebuild goes.
I don't think they were. I don't think they were ever in a full rebuild.
Maybe not a full rebuild, but I think that it was a reset at a minimum. It was a reset.
Okay.
Because they had to find some type of stability at the quarterback position, which I think Mac Jones is it. You know, last year they had that tumultuous battle between Cam Newton and Mac Jones, which ultimately Mac Jones won. They went with him. And it was the smart move because I always felt like Mac Jones was the better fit for that franchise of what they wanted to do. He was going to do his best to protect the football. He was going to make timely plays. And since he's young, he's impressionable. So he's not going to give Bill Belichick much pushback like maybe a Cam Newton would have. Now, looking at this season, I think it's really just continuing to build what they're already building, adding bricks to the wall. Mac Jones had a stellar rookie season. I think he went over 3,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. If I told you,
take that from your rookie,
you would take that. Yeah, you would take that from your rookie quarterback. That's very solid. But they have to add weapons. That's where they're at. It's about adding weapons and putting as many guys as possible around Mac Jones to kind of help him be successful. Defensively, they're still amongst the NFL's best, top 10.
And they will be when you got a mastermind like Bill Belichick. You know, they'll always be respectable defensively. And another position, I don't know about you, I think they could possibly go corner there as well in the draft.
They could. They very well could. We could see them go corner in the draft. Because I'm going to tell you this. I have them going wide receiver, but I have them going wide receiver in round 2 because I don't think anybody they want is substantial is going to fall to them in round 1. But they can very well go corner in the first round to kind of replace J.C. Jackson. I don't even think they tried to keep J.C. Jackson. They said after the Stephon Gilmore stuff, they said, we're done paying corners big money. But they were able.
Belichick is, pay guys. He doesn't pay guys, and he's a prideful guy. In his mind, he feels like he can take anybody and slip anybody in, and hey, just do your job, and he'll be all right. So,
no, for real, yeah, that's what it is. So, I think that's just kind of what happened. So we could probably see them go corner. I have them going wide receiver. It's funny because the guy I have for them taking the free agency is gone now. He went elsewhere. I had him taking Juju Smith-Schuster. But he went
to the Chiefs, right?
He went to the Chiefs. And he's a really good option, inside, outside type of guy, can run a full route tree. Obviously a little flashy with the TikTok stuff, but yeah. So, but I have 2 other options that I think could be a good fit for them if they decide to make that move.
Okay.
and that's Julio Jones and Cole Beasley.
I think I love the Cole Beasley.
And I think Julio Jones could be a fit there. But the thing about Julio, here's the thing. We've seen in recent memory a bad light kind of be cast on what it's like playing in New England, where it's kind of
militant,
kind of depressing. It's not fun, which is what you're seeing from Tom Brady. Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay and he had fun. You could tell he had fun playing football. So
that's why he can't leave now. That's why he can't get away.
He can't get away from it. He's had fun,
Yeah.
So for me, for New England, if you could get a guy like Julio Jones at a discount, who I've always been critical of, but he'd be a massive improvement over anything they have at receiver.
He would, and he fits into their culture, man.
He's quiet, quiet. And plus, I think that would be a smart move for him at a minimum because he's the guy that's really chasing the championship. And it's not far-fetched to think that New England could shock some people and win, right? They went 10-7 last year. They add receiving talent. Let's say you add a Julio Jones at the X, and then you get Cole Beasley. And these are both guys that are still
Beasley. And then if I'm not mistaken, they still have Nelson Aguilar last year. They still have Kevin Bourne.
They still got Hunter Henry.
I was just going to say, I was trying to think. They still got Hunter. I love Hunter Henry. Still got Hunter Henry. So
yeah, they still got Damian Williams at running back. So they got a lot of good pieces. But that's what I have for them in free agency. Now in the draft, there's a guy named Christian Watson from North Dakota State, and I'm going to tell you this: if you haven't watched him, he's really a unique prospect because we haven't seen a guy like him in a while.
It's crazy, man. North Dakota State is getting some guys out there, aren't they?
Low key. Hey, man, they're getting guys out there. Carson Wentz started it off, and now we're getting all these. Now we're starting to see other positions get drafted. But this guy is literally, he's an athletic freak. He's 6'4", 208. 6'4", 6'5". I think he's 6'5", 208. Let me correct myself. Yep, he's 6'5", 208. He hasn't scratched the surface of what he can be. So at North Dakota, they didn't just use him as an X or Y receiver. Like, this guy was in the slot. This guy was they were putting him on jet sweeps. He probably did some things out of the backfield. Like, Christian Watson is a really versatile athlete, but he has deep speed. I think he ran a 4.2, 4.26, if I'm not mistaken. He kind of, and I'm gonna make this comparison.
I feel like everybody was sub-3 this year at the combine.
Everybody, this was a fast group. Yeah. I'm gonna make this comparison, and it's not dominance wise, as far as skill set wise, body type, speed.
Okay.
I think that the Patriots will see him, and they will get memories of Randy Moss.
Now look now.
Well, look, listen to me. And it's only because we haven't seen.
You're talking about a guy who, personally, I think is the most talented wide receiver the NFL has ever had.
Well, I think it's Calvin Johnson, but we'll disagree on that.
And okay, all right,
fair enough. But only reason I say that because of the build, they're both tall, skinny guys that are kind of built like what do you call those dogs that race? Like
I don't know, Dobermans. I don't even know Dobermans.
Named after the bus. We're gonna figure it out, right? But they're both big size speed products, freak athletes, and I think Christian Watson is that. I think we might see him really, but he has a potential to become the best receiver in this class. That's how talented I think this kid is.
Out of what school you said?
North Dakota State.
Wow.
Yeah. So. That's what I have for them in the draft. I think he'd be a really, really good prospect for him. They could develop him. I'm excited. I don't know who they have quite calling the shots at offensive coordinator. That's going to be the big question mark. If it was Josh McDaniels, I feel a lot more comfortable. But now it's kind of like,
are they? I don't know. I could be wrong. Are they bringing Bill O'Brien back?
No, they're. It has yet to be said. That's who I predicted because we all know he's a Bill Belichick, Nick Saban disciple.
Exactly.
Both, right? He's a disciple of those coaching trees, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, that was my pick for them as far as NFL transaction wise, free agency and draft.
And I think once again, I mean, obviously we discussed the AFC is going to be, a gauntlet. But I mean, once again, yet another team that's going to be right there fighting for a wild card spot. You know what I'm saying? Because I think they finished 10-7 last year. And I think they'll probably be right around that area this year, right around 9-8, 10-7 this year.
Well, remember they actually faltered down the stretch. There was a time where New England was the number one seed in the AFC and the AFC, and they beat Tennessee, who was the number one seed. They beat a lot of good teams, so they just had I know Mac Jones went through a rough period.
They beat it was an ugly game, but they beat Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly.
In the game, I think Matt Jones only threw the ball twice, 2-3 times. Something like
that. They ran the football. It was cold.
Ran it, yeah. But
I remember they had that interview after the game with Micah Hyde and Jordan.
Yeah,
They said, "How do you guys? How do you guys feel losing the game with a quarterback only threw the ball 2 to 3 times?" He's like, "Why would you ask us that?"
Right.
So,
but I mean, hey, a win's a win, and they did beat them. You know what I'm saying?
But I tell you one thing. They played them the next 2 times and they put it on.
Oh man! Later in the season and then in the
in the playoffs, they put it on them. So
and then they told them too, like their time is over. You know what I'm saying? They were talking crap too.
But it's a passing of the guard. So I'm excited to see if Bill can flip it back. It would make for a lot of parity if he could. So
it would.
So yeah, New England Patriots.
We're moving on. We got the Miami Dolphins. It's been so much surrounding this team. Obviously, we know everything that's going on. They fired Brian Flores. And I mean that's a discussion for another day. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure we both have our feelings about that. But at the end of the day, they finished 9-8 last season. They actually won 8 of their last 9 games to end the season, and they fired Brian Flores after that. Another discussion for another day. But they ended the season winning 8 of their last 9 games. Now they brought in Mike McDaniel from San Francisco. They have the 29th pick in the first round.
They do.
Couple questions for them though. I feel like they can go a few positions. O-line, possibly running back, possibly look for another wide receiver. I think it's also important to see the progression of Tua this year. I think this is a humongous year for Tua Tagovailoa.
It is.
I'm interested to see what Mike McDaniel does, especially from an offensive standpoint. We know he comes from San Francisco. I think it's pretty fair to say Kyle Shanahan is calling the plays up there. I think it's pretty fair to say that. Kyle Shanahan's calling the plays up there. But I think it's interesting to see what type of schemes offensively that he brings to this team and just how much confidence he has in Tua and the progression Tua takes. What do you see for this Miami Dolphin team?
Well, that organization as a whole has put themselves into a flux when they didn't need to be. If they don't do some of the things that they did in the offseason, their arrow will be pointing upward. Now it's about even because you really don't know.
Exactly.
They got a lot of the talent back, but now you put yourself in a difficult spot because you fired Brian Flores, who created a winning culture in Miami, something that they haven't had in 10 freaking years.
He did.
And now you're saying, okay, I'm going to get this guy who's never even been a full de facto offensive coordinator.
Exactly.
I'm going to take this guy. And I like Mike McDaniel. I like his personality. But the truth is you're asking him to replace a Brian Flores that literally turned that franchise around. He won 7 of his last 8 games last year. They started off rocky, but they won
8 of 9. They won 8 of 9 in the season.
Correction, 8 of 9.
Yeah,
8 of 9. So even worse, right? So you fired this guy. So now you're asking Mike. You're putting Mike McDaniels in somewhat of a no-win situation because now Mike McDaniels has to go there and he has to rebuild a winning culture. That's a complete reset. You don't have the same head coach.
Exactly.
And Mike McDaniels,
how do you think some of those guys feel seeing what you just did to a coach like this? How do you think some of those guys feel about the organization And how do you think they're going to receive Mike McDaniel?
I don't know. And when you see Mike McDaniel, once again, he's fun. He likes to make jokes. But one thing, maybe you can say he's going to relate a little bit more to the players. But in all honesty, man, I don't know how it's going to work. Just because you look at what Brian Flores did when he got there. He went to that franchise and he got rid of guys that didn't want to be there. One of the big names being Minka Fitzpatrick. He traded them away. He said, "Hey, you're not buying into the program. You can go. You're free to go." And you start to see the end of his first season, they bought into his program. And they had a really good end to that season. And I remember they beat New England. Devontae Parker had a field day with Stephon Gilmore. Fun game to watch.
Word.
And then the next year, which was 2020, they win 10 games. Which was like, whoa, this Miami team is looking a little bit legit.
And everyone thought, their direction was heading upward.
Heading upwards. Now, the only thing, and this is the big question mark. Now, they used to only have one question mark. Now they have two question marks. One is Tua the guy. And I'll be honest and say that Tua bamboozled us all. Like college football have certain guys looking great.
It does,
first of all,
man.
we look at his receiving core. His receiving core is crazy. I mean, I think Jalen
they had
Waddle,
four first rounders, right?
Jalen
Waddle,
Jerry Jeudy,
and we're forgetting somebody
that played for the Falcons. Calvin Ridley.
Really? Yeah.
I'll put you like this.
Good God.
Terrible, right? I will put it to you like
four first round wide receivers.
Jalen Waddle. There was a time where Jalen Waddle, who was a top 10 guy, was the number 4 receiver on that team. Number 4 or 5 wide receiver on that team.
The season,
yeah.
I was going to say the season when he came in the championship game through the touchdown. I think that was to Jalen Waddle, right?
No, that was to
Smith. Oh, Devontae Smith. We didn't even mention Devontae Smith.
And he was like the number 5 number.
We didn't even mention Devontae Smith.
So that just shows you how much talent they had on that roster. So Tua is in a very difficult position. It's been well known that Brian Flores wasn't a big fan, didn't want him. He actually wanted Justin Herbert over Tua.
So we said Smith, Jeudy, Waddle, Ruggs. And caught Ridley at the back. God, dog, man.
That's what they had on that team. So
good God.
Yeah, it's tough. So right now, they have 2 question marks. One, is this quarterback your guy? If so, this is it. Like
this is make or break season.
This is make or break season for him.
Without a doubt.
And now you've literally put yourself in a position where now you're asking, is my head coach legitimate? So Miami has a lot of question marks. For me, I looked at if you want Tua to be successful, the only thing you can do is protect him the best. I went offensive line for their team needs.
Okay.
Mainly offensive guard because I feel like they already have some nice pieces at tackle.
And a few of the mock drafts, I've seen a lot of people going guard.
Yeah. So for free agency, I had them taking a guy who they've actually had before, who I think would be a good stopgap solution, or could possibly still bloom into a long-term starter for them, and that's Eric Flowers. Eric Flowers, he played for them once. Remember they traded him back to and he played for Washington. He started his career out in New York. He was a left tackle, got drafted out of Miami at the top of the first round. They thought he was going to be the stud, and it never really came to fruition. But he transitioned to guard, and now you're seeing a lot more solid play out of him. So he's a guy that they could possibly bring in, and he could man one of those guard spots, probably left guard. And be solid. I don't know how special he can be, but he can be solid, and he's still young enough to possibly improve. Right? It's still possible. So I got Eric Flowers, and I think, and you're looking at Mike McDaniel and the offense that he might run, which might be more run based.
I would think so, considering he came from San Francisco.
Exactly.
From that system, I would think so.
So you could use some big bodies. Like Eric Flowers, like a 6'5", 330-pound, 340-pound guy. He's a big guy. So you could use some big bodies to kind of move trash in that run game. Now in the draft, I looked at a guy from FSU, or not from FSU, from Boston College, named Zion Johnson. He's also a former tackle that transitioned to guard, and he could come in. He had a really good Senior Bowl. You saw him at practices. He was doing some good things. But man, this dude could do work in a phone booth. That's what they call him, a phone booth guard. Yeah. So really good against the runs.
That.
Yeah, he's really good in run and against the run. He can do some things in pass pro as well, but you can tell that his tackle skills really help him at guard when it comes to guarding and blocking these athletic defensive linemen. Right. So I think you bring in Zion Johnson. They actually picked. I want to say they picked 26th, not 29th. So
26, okay.
26, right? So they could get a guy like Zion Johnson if he falls, which I think is very possible. It's within their range. He could come in day one. You could plug him in at left guard, and he can be really, really productive and really help them in that run game. The run game is actually his strength. So if you look at his – go ahead.
I was going to say, so like I said, 9-8 last year, won 8 of their last 9 games. Once again, we talked about how much the AFC is a gauntlet. Can you see them possibly competing for a playoff spot?
Look, it's gonna be tough. Look, shite. I don't know, man. We'll have to revisit that, because the truth is as much as I like some of the pieces that they do have, it's too many questions at coach and quarterback.
Yeah. And then I think, like we said, man, we can almost confidently name at least 6 playoff teams. Confidently name at least 6 playoff teams. Yeah. So it's going to be a battle and a gauntlet for that last spot, which I think even at best they'd be battling for.
Exactly. So, yeah, I don't know how things are going to look for them, but now they put themselves in a position that the only choice they have is to figure it out and literally reset their culture. So we'll see what Mike McDaniels does. We'll see if Tua survives. Maybe the running game will prolong his time in Miami. We'll see what happens. But once again, they don't have any running backs. They got Mostert. Yeah, they did. They got Mostert.
They picked him up in free agency. I like Mostert. He's a speedster. And I would, like you said, you would think that Mike McDaniel would bring a style of offense that's similar to what they ran in San Francisco. So maybe you can see some success there for Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, maybe, right? And ultimately it'll positively impact Tua. So I'm excited to see what happens. We always have surprise teams. Maybe they're one of those surprise teams, but hey, for me, if I'm judging it based off of what I've seen, it's not looking too good. So
word. And last but not least, AFC East, we got the New York Jets. Obviously, they're in a full-on rebuild mode. We're going to be going into Robert Saleh's second season as head coach. They finished 4-13 last year. However, they have 2 top 10 picks in this year's draft at number 4 and number 10. Once again, speaking of young quarterbacks, I think a lot of their success will depend on the progression of Zach Wilson at quarterback. As far as the draft goes, I looking at them, I felt like they could go in a number of positions. I think O-line may be number 1 for them as far as for them to look at in the draft. But yeah, man, what you think about these New York Jets, man? Can you see any improvement from them next year?
I can. And the reason why I can is because they lost some games, but one thing, they were very similar. We talk about Houston all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They battled. They fought. And
I think that's indicative of their head coach, though.
Exactly, Robert Saleh.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw down the stretch that, hey, if this team can get a few pieces, make a few changes, maybe get some more improvement from the quarterback, that they got a shot to possibly shock some people in a few years, 1 or 2 years. So you saw them; they had some big games. They had the Bucks on the ropes.
They did.
They had the Bucks on the ropes.
They did. It took a hellacious effort for Tampa to come on back, and I think they won the game in the last couple minutes of in the last minute of the fourth quarter.
It took exactly.
He caught Johnson or something for the touchdown. Tom Brady did. Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you 2 interesting games that the Jets won.
Okay.
They beat the Titans, who were the number one seed, who wound up being the number one seed in the AFC. They beat them pretty convincingly. And they beat the Bengals convincingly, who wound up going to the Super Bowl and representing the AFC. So this isn't a team that can't compete. This is a team that's missing a few pieces, that's young, and that's figuring out. They had a new head coach in Robert Salah. Salah, I hate to say his name wrong. They had Zach. They had Zach Wilson, who even though I wasn't essentially high on, he showed some ability. He can definitely make all the throws down the field. For them, it's can they continue? Can Zach Wilson take the next step? How legitimate is Robert Salah? I think he's legit. I think they have I think they have a very well-rounded coaching staff. And I'm gonna tell you something. Defensively, they're on to something.
Mm-hmm.
They got CJ Mosley back. He finally was healthy and played some meaningful snaps for him. And quietly, Quentin Williams' brother, Quincy Williams, is solid for them. He's really solid.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. They drafted Quentin Williams, correct?
They drafted Quentin Williams, and Quincy Williams' brother wound up coming on later on down the trail. And I don't know if they signed him as a free agent or they drafted him, but he's actually very solid. And he was kind of the running mate for CJ Mosley in that linebacking core. But they have a guy that I think is going to come back and be productive for them, and Carl Lawson, who was a pass rusher for the Bengals. But he got hurt. I think he ruptured his Achilles at the beginning of the season and he was out. But he was looking like he could have possibly made that step to Pro Bowl pass rusher for them. So but for them, I have them adding more weapons for Zach Wilson. They got Elijah Moore last year, who did some good things. They got, what's his name? Was it Michael Carter? Is it Michael Carter Williams or something like that? They drafted a running back out of North Carolina.
Running back, okay, yeah. I know.
Carter Williams. Yeah. So they got him. They drafted that guard out of USC, Elijah Vera Tucker, who's looking like he's going to become a Pro Bowl player.
I like
Elijah Vera Tucker. Now the two receivers I had them adding now in free agency, I had them adding Sammy Watkins. I think Sammy Watkins, he's a journeyman at this point.
Yeah.
Still young, still solid. He could be anywhere from a solid number 4 to a low end number 2, right? He gives you some value. You just want to add more weapons in the passing game, especially guys with speed. I think Sammy Watkins still has speed, and I think he showed you that he can still be productive in this league. So he's a guy you bring him on. He's already won a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So you could bring him.
Yeah.
He has experience. He's a guy you could bring in, and he could be somewhat of a mentor and play a small role in your offensive lineup and give you some extra targets for Zach Wilson. Now draft pick at 10. I had to go hard to go home. I got Drake London from USC.
Oh, your boy, USC,
my boy. And I'm gonna tell you this. This isn't me. I'm biased, right, guys? Just let you know, I get biased sometimes. This is the first year.
Assessment.
This is an honest assessment. This is the first time where I can honestly say that USC has the best receiver in this. I think Drake London.
I don't even think it's arguable.
Yeah,
I like Chris Olave from Ohio State as well.
Right.
But
right.
I don't think it's argument.
And some people argue Jamison Williams, and rightfully so. Right. He's injured.
But I was just going to say he was out.
Yeah, he's out. He's out. Right. But Drake London is, first of all, he's a two-sport guy. So Drake London was, I don't know if you know, when USC went to the Final Four, Drake London was part of that team.
Playing on basketball. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Drake London was a two-sport athlete at USC, which I love two-sport athletes. I think they excel at football even more than a regular football guy.
Mm-hmm.
That down the stretch just chose football to be his meal ticket. And he really excelled last year after Michael Pittman and Amon St. Brown left.
Mm-hmm.
He had over 1,000 yards, had 8+ touchdowns. But what you really saw was he has special ball skills.
Right.
You throw that ball up, he's gonna locate it. And since he's a big, long guy, he's 6'5", 6'5", I want to say 6'5", 213, if what he weighed in at. But he's a guy that's gonna find the ball. He has a humongous catching radius. He can twist and distort his body to be able to make the catch. And surprisingly, he has some run after the catch ability. I'm like, look at this dude.
And you said you got him at 10, being there at 10?
Mm-hmm, at 10. I think he'll be I can see them getting him at 10, drafting him. I don't think anybody's going to take a receiver before that.
So I'm gonna put you on a spot then because they have the 4th pick as well.
Hello, what'd you say?
I said I'm gonna put you on a spot then because they have the 4th pick as well.
Okay, so who do they have? So you're asking me who I think they should take it for?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I look at offensive line.
Okay.
I think they should probably you could look at a guy like Evan Neal from Alabama.
Okay.
I'm not plugging him at left tackle. I'm putting him at right tackle, or I'm putting him at guard, because they have Micah Benton, who's looking like he can become. Micah Benton is a stud.
Special. Yeah,
he looks special.
Yeah.
So you put Evan Neal at right, which you guys, I'll tell you guys this. I'm not big on Alabama offensive linemen. No, all of them come in. A lot of them bust. They're always overhyped. Oh, this guy's big, or oh, this guy. No, like a lot of them. Really
like Cam Robinson.
Like Cam Robinson, and he got franchise tag. How I do not know.
Word.
It blows my mind. But the thing is none of these guys come in and are transcendent. So they're talking about Evan Neal. I don't think Evan Neal is the best tackle in the draft. I think he's about the 3rd or 4th best tackle. I think you take him, you put him in right tackle, or you put him at guard, and you go to work. And kind of like one thing they can do is, like, a lot of them can run block, because that's what they do at Alabama. They're going to run the football.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's what I look at them. They take a tackle at 4 and then go receiver at 10. Everything right now defensively, they actually have very good pieces. They're getting Carl Austin back. They're not in a bad shape defensively.
Right.
For them, for that ball club, you need to be focused on how can I protect Zach Wilson and how can I give him more targets.
Absolutely.
That's where their focus should be. So Drake London, if you haven't watched him, watch his tape. You'll see him. He's like, the comparison I make for him. First of all, he's like Michael Pittman Jr. on steroids. So Drake London will be better than Michael Pittman was this last year. And Michael Pittman was a 1,000-yard wide receiver for the Colts.
He was.
I think Drake London,
and I think his stock is climbing.
Exactly. And
that's why I'm really interested to see where they go at quarterback.
Exactly. So we know Michael Pittman Jr. is good, and I think Drake London is better than Michael Pittman Jr. Okay. I think Drake London is a more polished Mike Evans coming out of college.
And that's crazy you say that, because I know you're not big on Mike Evans.
Well, but we know he's in that mold of those big body possession wide receivers. The difference between him and Mike Evans is Mike Evans wasn't a really great route runner coming out of college. Drake London can run routes. He's a 2-sport guy, so he can jump out the gym. And I think his catching radius is bigger than Mike Evans was coming out. So you're seeing Drake London distort his body to make catches over here. I'm telling you, guys got to watch his highlights. You're going to be like, this kid is really special. So I think Drake London at 10 would pay immediate dividends for the Jets and Zach Wilson.
All right. O-line at 4 and wide receiver at 10. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, there you have it, guys. Another wonderful, wonderful episode. I appreciate everyone for tuning in, man. We truly love and appreciate you guys, man. And we're going to keep coming with this heat for you. I think this was a great, great, great episode, man. We're going to keep it coming for you guys, man. And, yeah, man, we love y'all, man. Go ahead, Kenny.
Nah, man, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, we got to cover a wide array of topics. You guys just look out in the upcoming weeks. Not only are we have our regular Sundays, but guess what? We have a very fun event coming up that, Swan Don knows that I love, and that's the NFL draft. We're going to have
We're about a month away, about a little over a month away.
Right. But hey, we're doing this divisional rooted in football thing. We're leading up to the NFL draft. So definitely look forward to that. It's going to be on Thursday, as it always is. But we're going to be live covering, analyzing every single pick. We'll have some exciting guests on, and we'll give you guys opportunity once again to chime in like you guys have today, and tell us what you guys think about some of these, because there's always some surprises, some curveballs. You're like, they drafted this person. So yeah, we got that. So a lot of great events coming up, and we're just excited and thankful to have you guys all on.
Absolutely, man. So we're gonna keep it coming. We're gonna keep hitting y'all with this heat. We appreciate everyone that do log on and check us out. Please, please, please spread the word, because we're going to keep coming with this, man. We're going to the moon with this thing, man. We love y'all, and obviously God bless. And yeah, man, that's it, man. Another episode.
Another episode in the books. All right.
More heat for y'all, man. We love y'all, man. God bless.
Boom. Hey, promo coming soon. You know we dropping these promos on your head, so make sure y'all look out for
Absolutely.
the.
Same time next Sunday, man. Y'all tune in. Also, I want to plug the Break Room Breakdown, which is Kenneth Tiberius. That's that's another podcast that he does on his own, man. So I definitely want to plug that. And yeah, man, y'all just be on the lookout, man. We got a lot coming from y'all. Also, on Twitter, Rooted in Sports Community.
Every Saturday.
Community. Go ahead. When is it, Kenny?
Every Saturday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right? 8 p.m. What would be for you? It would be 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, tune in. We get on Twitter Spaces. We act a goddamn fool. We talk sports for hours. Literally, nothing's off limits. And we go there. We have fun. I think yesterday we went for about 5-6 hours.
Yeah, it get a little crazy on that Rooted in Sports community, man. So Twitter Spaces, man. Y'all go ahead, hop on, man, and definitely participate, get into some good banter and everything. And yeah, man. Once again, love you all, man. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, guys. Until next Sunday. See you guys.
All right.
Peace.